20-year-old Anthony A.J. Hall is suing his former live-in girlfriend, 19-year-old Amber Parker, for rent and the return of his property. Amber says Anthony locked her out of the apartment.
Mr. Hall, the defendant was your girlfriend and a roommate of yours. Yeah. She moved into your house?
We got a house together.
Who was on the lease?
Me, her, Amber, and Aaron.
Who's Aaron?
My friend.
After a period of time, short period of time, she moved out. And it is your claim that when she moved out, she took with her some property that belonged to you. And in addition, she put a stop payment order on the last month's rent for February of 2006.
I believe it was January's rent.
Do you have the check?
Yeah.
In any event, Ms. Parker says she moved out. She took nothing that didn't belong to her when she moved out. She says that she stopped payment on the rent because you had changed the locks. And she is counterclaiming because she said you destroyed some of her clothes. Well, this is dated December 30th of 2005, so I assume that it was for January.
Yeah.
All right, when did you move in together?
September 30th of 05.
Okay. You had an argument at some point. When was that?
On Christmas.
What happened?
We were having a party, a Christmas party, and when I returned from doing my family stuff, she just walked out the house, and that was about it. And then she came back an hour later, said it was over.
Where did you go?
I went to my son's dad's house in Salem.
How old is your son?
1.
What property do you claim she took, and when did she take it?
I believe it was January 7th, and here's a list.
See the list, please.
She called, I was in Albany, me and Aaron were in Albany. She called saying that she was at the house, she couldn't get in the house and she asked if the locks had been changed. We said yes.
Why did you change the locks?
The landlord told us to because there was things starting to show up that were missing.
Just a second. When did you change the locks?
The 5th.
When were you notified that the rent was returned?
It was the 11th.
Well, so on January 5th, when you changed the locks, you, in effect, evicted her.
The landlord told us to.
Don't tell me what the landlord told you. That's hearsay.
Okay.
Landlord can't tell you to change the locks. I don't even believe you when you say that the landlord told you to change the locks. So she's entitled to her rent back. Now, did you take his CDs?
It was my book of CDs, and he put his CDs in the back, but I got it out of his room because that's where I found it.
Okay, so the CDs you have, what's motion picture?
When you turn it on, the water move, it's a light picture.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I gave it to me for Christmas.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding his giving it to you for Christmas.
He had 3 of them, and I found out that he had traded drugs for them anyways, and so I took the one that was going to be mine for Christmas.
Well, you can't do that. You have to return it to him. Disco ball. Listen to me. I'm not going through all this little stuff if you two people decided to play house with each other. I'm going over the main items that are here. VH1 Big 05 sweepstakes bag. What is that?
Oh, it was a drawing from my work that we had, and I took the PSP out of it because we were going to share the items.
Do you have it?
I sold that, the PSP.
You sold it. How much did you sell it for?
$200.
You can't do that.
She actually took the whole bag, and that was valued at $500.
No, I didn't.
Why did you take these things that didn't belong to you and sell them?
That's the only thing that I sold, and we were sharing all the stuff, and I took one item out of it.
Do you have any other property that you took out of the house that doesn't belong to you?
No, one item that he had on the list was a medical marijuana program, and I took that and changed the caregiver, which he is no longer, and that's one thing that he's suing me for.
A what? I didn't...
It's because I was on chemotherapy for a while, and so I got the medical marijuana program, and he was the caregiver, so I took that stuff when I left and changed my caregiver, and I don't even have the program anymore.
I also paid for the program, the plant, and the lighting.
I don't
have that.
So what?
All right.
So what? You know, you play house, that's what happens. Counsel claims states that he destroyed some of your property. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah, he peed on some of my clothes, and they were moldy, so I had to throw them away.
That was her cat that she locked in the laundry room.
And my cat wasn't there anymore.
Don't speak.
For probably 3, 4, 5 days.
You didn't do that?
No.
You have no proof that he did that, correct?
No.
Okay. You have to return the items that you took that weren't yours, because that's called stealing. You have to return $500 to him for property of his that you sold, because that's also called stealing. You, sir, have to know if you want to be free of a roommate, get a small apartment, and live by yourself. But once you sign on a lease with somebody, they have certain rights. You cannot lock them out. You got it? Where are you living now?
I'm living in Salem with my son's dad.
You have a child who's a year old. You have a responsibility. You know what your responsibility is?
To take care of him.
To maintain a stable home for him. That's your job. Nothing else. Clear?
Yeah.
Mona Taylor is suing her son's ex-roommate, 18-year-old Melissa Murray, for breaking a lease. Melissa says Mona's son, 18-year-old Nevada Smith, was using drugs in the apartment.
You're Nevada.
Yes.
Stand up next to your mother, please. Nevada, you still 17?
No, I'm 18 now.
Miss Murray, how old are you?
18.
Was he your boyfriend?
No, ma'am.
Just a friend of yours?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Taylor, this is your case. Your husband relocated to Alaska for work.
Right.
You remained in Washington so that Nevada could finish high school. At the end of the school year, you moved to Alaska to be with your husband. Nevada elected to stay in Washington. These two children were going to rent an apartment together. Since he was underage, you had to sign the lease.
They wouldn't allow me to sign the lease. That's why Melissa agreed to move in and sign the lease. I was going to pay the first 2 months' rent and the pet deposit and the...
Pet deposit?
Yes, because they were going to keep my little dog for me until I could get him to Alaska.
Yes.
So I was paying the rent for 2 months in order for him then to be 18, and they could pay their own rent from July on.
Okay. You moved in when?
May 1st.
When did you move out, Nevada?
We moved out about a week to 10 days later.
Tell me why, Nevada.
Originally, when Melissa and I moved into the apartment together, things were going okay for about the first couple of days. After that, she started getting controlling. I had to be home at a certain time. I had to clean up after myself, you know, things like that, which were okay. She just was being controlling, and she comes home, and I was in my bedroom, and Samantha and I were cleaning a pipe.
Pipe? What kind of pipe?
A marijuana
pipe?
Yes.
You should have cleaned the kitchen, which is what she was complaining about, instead of cleaning the marijuana pipe. Yes, go ahead.
So we were going to leave to actually go smoke, and Melissa came barging in and freaking out, screaming that it was her apartment, saying that she paid the rent and stuff like that.
Was she going to do drugs in the apartment?
Because I was in my room and I was cleaning the pipe.
Was she screaming because you were going to do drugs
Yes.
in the apartment,
Yes,
is the
ma'am.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that why you were screaming at him?
Yes, ma'am.
So, you left.
Yes.
What do you want from her, Miss Taylor?
I had called and left like 5 messages because Nevada had called me, said that things weren't going good. Melissa was screaming at him.
Did he tell you why, Miss Taylor?
He did.
What did he say?
He said, because, Mom, I was experimenting with pot. But a few days earlier, him and Melissa and Samantha were all three experimenting with pot and drinking. So it wasn't just
You
my
mean in
son.
the apartment?
Yeah, we were drinking alcohol in the apartment.
I didn't ask you about drinking alcohol. I asked you about doing drugs in the apartment.
We were at a party.
It
So it wasn't at the apartment, no.
But also, the night that Samantha was cleaning her pipe, they weren't going to get stoned in the apartment. They were leaving.
What do you want from Miss Murray?
What I want from Miss Murray is she, at any time, she could have called me, Your Honor, and said, I don't want to stay with this lease. I would have flew back to Washington. I would have stayed with Nevada till he turned 18. She also kept hitting my dog. The two of them agreed to keep my dog. She kept hitting it off the furniture. My furniture that was in their apartment. I mean, my dog lived on that furniture. He's just a little poodle. She kept smacking him. Nevada, I'm not going to have this dog on the furniture in this house. The dog, that was the dog's couch.
Miss Taylor,
Yes.
what possible theory do you have that Miss Murray owes you any money?
Because she broke the lease after she agreed to live there till he turned 18.
I wouldn't live there with him if he brought drugs into the apartment. He exposed not only himself, but Miss Murray to criminal prosecution. I wouldn't stay with him for 1 second. I mean, if your cause of action is she was a friend, she could have called me. Well, that's possible. But idiot over here assumed that because his mother wasn't around anymore, he could do what he wanted to do. Well, he can't. He can do what he wants to do if he's got his own place, and if he is intent on experimenting with drugs in his own place. That's up to him and the police department. But he can't expose Miss Murray to that. So if he did the wrong thing and she wanted out, she has a right to go. And according to your complaint, you were going to pay the first 2 months' rent, and she was going to pay starting with the third month. There wasn't the third month. There wasn't even a second month. There wasn't even a second week. But according to Nevada, the reason there wasn't a second week is because she got nuts because they were cleaning drug paraphernalia in the apartment. That's what he told me. Is that right, Nevada?
Yes, ma'am.
Diane Power is suing bicyclist George Cranford for running into her while she was jogging. George claims it was Diane who ran into him.
Miss Power, what was the date of this incident?
June 5th, 2005.
According to your complaint, you were jogging. Mr. Cranford was riding his bike.
Yes, Your Honor.
And there was a collision and you were injured.
Yes.
You want Mr. Cranford to be responsible for your medical bills because you claim that he was negligent.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Cranford says he was not negligent, he was abiding by the rules of the road, and that you actually caused the collision yourself. You don't really know what happened because you're facing forward. So, Mr. Cranford, Cranford, I want you to tell me your version of how this collision occurred.
Your Honor, I was riding around the track. There were very few people there that day.
What kind of track is it?
It's a running, jogging, and bicycling track about 8 feet wide, and it goes about 7 miles around Lake Zarinsky in Omaha.
Okay.
Mrs. Power was in front of me. She was in the center of the track, and as I approached her, I yelled very loudly that I'm passing on your left. Those are the rules of the track, and they're clearly posted there, and I have pictures to demonstrate that. As I did, Mrs. Power, instead of moving to the right, moved immediately to the left, right in front of me, which made it impossible for me to do anything but move further to the left to avoid hitting her. I moved further to the left, completely off the track, moved onto the grass.
And she's on the track.
That's correct.
But now she's all the way over. She had moved all the way over to the left, so she's close to where you are.
Exactly.
Okay.
As I did, and I yelled again a second time, I pulled up beside her, and she made another sharp cut to the left. She planted her leg right in front of the chain of my bicycle. She drove her shoulder into my rib cage and knocked me and my bicycle down off onto the left, onto the grass. She fell forward onto the pavement.
There was a collision.
Yes, ma'am. It was from the side of her hitting me from the side of my bicycle.
Now tell me what you remember.
I was on the left-hand side of the trail to begin with. I heard him, and I only heard him one time, say, "On your left." Well, my gut feel, I've been running for 16 years now, is to move. I thought the best way to move was to move off the trail into the grass, and that's when I got hit.
She was clearly on the track when the collision happened, ma'am, because she fell forward onto the track. She was not on the grass.
Ma'am, I have
You know whose
some
fault
pictures.
this is, Mr. Cranford?
Well, it clearly isn't my fault, Your Honor. I made the necessary announcement twice. I moved to the left as I'm required to do.
Mr. Cranford, let's say, Mr. Cranford, you were driving your car and you came to a stop sign and the car in front of you didn't stop at the stop sign. Would you try to stay away from that car? See, when I drive a car, I'm a defensive driver. If I see somebody weaving in and out of lanes and getting over to the left-hand lane and they're not supposed to be in the left-hand lane, I say to myself, I don't want to have anything to do with that nut. My husband, on the other hand, says, you don't belong in that lane. He doesn't necessarily say it, but that with his actions, he gets right on that person's tail and makes sure if they're driving in the wrong place, step back a little bit. Take a deep breath, get over to the right, let the nut pass you. So I'm saying to you, if you're dealing with somebody who, according to you, isn't following the rules of the road, and you don't know why, you don't know whether they're hearing impaired, it's possible she's hearing impaired. It's possible she's neurologically impaired. It's possible she got confused between her left and her right, because according to you, you said on your left, which means she's supposed to go immediately to the other side because you're going to pass just the opposite. So that would say to me, listen, I'm going to stop and let her get away from me. You chose not to do that.
That's not necessarily the case, Your Honor. Mrs. Power was not acting erratically on the track.
She was acting erratically, according to you, Mr. Cranford.
She made one move to the left and then made another move to the left.
Just a minute. No. Listen to me, sir. Listen to what you say. You said she was behaving erratically because you just told me the signs are posted all over there. If you say on your left, you're supposed to know that you're passing on your left. You said on your left, she moved to the left. Just the opposite of what she was supposed to do. And then you said to her, on your left again.
Yes.
And again, she did the same thing.
Yes.
Well, that proves my point, sir. According to you,
I had no opportunity to move all the way to the right.
I wasn't telling you to move all the way, sir. I was telling you to stop.
I didn't have an opportunity to stop, and my brakes were
Just
on.
a sec.
I was not going fast.
Mr. Cranford.
When that happened.
Mr. Cranford, you're behind her. You have an opportunity to evaluate a situation. You are on the vehicle, and you have an opportunity to assess, and you didn't make the right assessment. Because when you said on your left again, and according to you, she still wasn't getting over, you made the wrong assessment by not stopping.
I couldn't stop. I was beside her at that point, Your Honor.
Mr. Cranford, you make the same kind of excuses that my husband makes. What kind of medical expenses did you have?
A total of $501.31.
Well, that's what he's going to pay. $501.31?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what he's going to pay. He's not going to pay for your pain and suffering or anything else because it was an accident. But he's certainly going to cover these expenses because it was his fault. Because he wasn't driving defensively. He was saying, she's got to follow the rules, and if she doesn't follow the rules, I'm going to teach her. On your left means on your left, and you're supposed to get over. Raise your right hand. Good girl. That's all.
Emily Collins is suing her ex-boyfriend, 28-year-old auto mechanic Demetris Daniel, for assaulting her during a night of heavy drinking. Demetris says Emily punched him first.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 5 on the calendar in the matter of Collins versus Daniel. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Ms. Collins, you and Mr. Daniel were boyfriend and girlfriend. It is your claim that after a night of both of you drinking, Mr. Daniel assaulted you, caused you severe injuries. You were treated in a hospital. You want him to pay your medical bills,
Yes,
and then
ma'am.
some. Mr. Daniel said that you were both pretty drunk, that you were as aggressive as he was. He has no recollection of assaulting you to the extent that you claim that you were assaulted, and that you even saw each other subsequently. Is that
Yes,
right,
Your
sir?
Honor.
How long were the two of you dating?
We've been dating probably for about a month at the time when the incident happened.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
You have a drinking problem?
No, ma'am.
Well, it seemed to me that if two people get loaded to the extent that they can't remember what's happening, they have a problem.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
I remember everything that happened, Your Honor.
Do you?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Daniel?
Mechanic.
And you?
I'm a nurse.
Okay, Ms. Collins, let's hear about the assault. It happened in February of
Yes, ma'am,
2005?
February 12th.
Go ahead, let me hear.
We had been going out for about a month, and we went out with some of my friends out to a couple of clubs. We both had been drinking, and then we closed the clubs and went back to his house. My intentions were just to go there and go to sleep because him and I had been arguing and been having some problems. I found out that he was married. He told me he had been married and then came out slowly telling me he's still married, in the process of getting a divorce. Then found out that they weren't in the process of getting any kind of divorce. So when we went back to his house, he was making advances towards me, to, do something sexual, and that's not what I wanted.
Your Honor,
so
she's lying.
Shh, you're going to have a chance later.
So
I don't want you to look down. I want you to look at me. I want to look at your eyes, Ms. Collins. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Everything at this point was fine up until when he started doing that.
Well, what did you go back to his house for if you were drinking and he was drinking?
Because up until this point, there hadn't been any problems.
Well, you closed the clubs. It must have been very late.
Yeah, him and I had
Don't
been...
look down. You look at me.
Him and I had been hanging out.
Listen to me.
And
You just told me you closed the clubs, which means it was very late.
yes, ma'am.
And the two of you had been drinking. You went to more than one club.
Right.
So then why, if you didn't want to engage in any sort of intimate relationship, would you go back to his house rather than go back to your house?
Because there was no way for me to get back to my house because both of us had been drinking.
Well, how did you get to his house?
He drove. He drove. I mean, my friend's house was only a block away from his house, so, he drove.
Well, when you say you closed the clubs,
Yes.
you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house?
Yes, who lives not
Oh,
too far
just a
from the
second.
club.
Well, you didn't tell me that. You said you closed the clubs and went to his house. So you closed the clubs and went to your friend's house, who lives a block
Right.
away from him.
Right.
Why didn't you stay at your friend's house? Is not an answer.
Because we were going to spend the night together. I
Who
didn't...
was going to spend the night together?
Him and I were going to spend the night at
Well,
his
what were
house.
you going to do? Play canasta?
Just go to sleep. We were just going to go to sleep, Your Honor.
Why couldn't you go to sleep at your friend's house?
It's a party house. There was too many people there. I don't crash at party houses. I wanted to stay with a friend.
Okay, I'm just getting there. All right, so now you drive to his house.
Yes.
Keep going.
Okay, so then he started coming on to me. I just wanted to go to sleep. I just wanted to go to sleep, Your Honor. And when I tried to leave, he blocked the door.
Where were you going?
I was going to call someone to come pick me up. I just wanted to leave the house and go out front, use my cell phone, call somebody to come pick me up. And he would not let me leave. He blocked the door. He pushed me down. I got up. He pushed me back down. And then he pushed me over towards the bed. Every single time when I got up, he kept pushing me down. And then that progressed. He hit me. He smacked me first. And then he hit me in the side of my head. And I tried to fight back. And then he just ended up choking me, telling me to go to sleep and that I wasn't going anywhere and cursing at me and stuff like that. And that was the last thing I remember, him telling me to go to sleep and that I wasn't going anywhere and that this is what it felt like to be strangled.
What do you mean? It was the last thing you remember. What is that? I don't understand. It's the last thing you remember.
Well, he was choking me, and then when I woke up, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning.
So he choked you, you passed out, and then you woke up how many hours later?
It was probably about 4.5 hours later.
Okay, when you woke up, what did you do?
I woke him up and told him to take me to my car and that I was thinking about pressing charges against him. And he told me that it was my fault, and I didn't say anything else to him.
So where did you go?
He dropped me off at my friend's house. And
A block away?
Yes.
Couldn't you walk there?
It's probably a little bit further than a block. It's in the same neighborhood.
Took you to your friend's house, and what happened next?
I went inside. I didn't say anything to my friends because I know if I would have told them, they probably would have...
Don't speculate what they would have done. Keep going.
Well, I didn't say anything, and I left.
Where did you go?
I went home and spoke to a couple family members of mine, and I explained to them what happened, and they said that I should go to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't have insurance.
What were you going to the hospital for?
Because the side of my head was severely swollen, and I had blood coming out of the side of my ear, and my jaw wasn't meeting.
You mean then your friends didn't say anything to you when you went into the house?
I kind of hid my face a little bit.
Okay. You have photographs?
I don't have any pictures because at the time...
the answer is you don't have any photographs.
No, ma'am.
Do you have a hospital report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. Okay. Now, after this incident happened, you went out with him again.
Yes, he called me, and he seemed very genuinely sorry. He was concerned with what condition I was in when I went to the hospital and everything, and I told him I ended up having to go in. I was seriously hurt.
Well, they found that you had a facial bruise. They did a CAT scan. They found nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
But the main thrust of this bill is the $2,500 CAT scan. That's what bloated it to $3,600.
Yes.
Okay, so you told him that you had this bruise, and he said...
He said that he would pay for all of it. I told him that I would feel better about him sitting in jail, and he said that I would be doing the right thing if that was the route that I took, and that he would do anything he could to make it up to me after he got out.
Fine. So when did you go out with him again?
A month later.
Why?
Because the guy that I knew was very sweet, and he treated me really good, and I just thought that he had an alcohol problem that changed him into somebody else.
Well, you told me about 5 minutes ago that you had been arguing with him a lot because he found that he lied to you, that he was married, that he wasn't in the process of getting a divorce, and he's a drunk, and he has blackouts, so he doesn't know what he's doing, and he gets violent. All this doesn't sound to me like worthy of a second date.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is...
Later today.
What do you have that suggests that he...
Ex-boyfriend Demetris Daniel beat her up during a night of heavy drinking.
My question to you is, you just said to me that the person that you knew, even though he lied to you about being married, he lied to you about getting a divorce, he assaulted you to the extent you had to go to the emergency room. He was a sweet guy, and you felt that it was only because of the alcohol that changed his personality. That's pretty much what you just testified to. Mm-hmm. Then why in the world would a relatively intelligent woman go out with him drinking again?
We went out to dinner, and he had only had like 1 or 2 drinks while we were sitting there having dinner.
And what about you?
Same.
You drank together.
We had
All
wine
right.
with dinner.
How about a Diet Coke? What?
What? No.
Yeah, that probably would have been the right
Give me a
thing to
break.
do.
I
You're
know.
right. You're right.
I know.
Your
They
Honor.
keep me in business, so I shouldn't complain. Now I'm up to you.
The truth of the matter.
You know me. I love the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you don't tell me the truth, you're going to be eating your shoes.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Okay, the whole night started. We was at Mojo's. This was the club. We closed. When we got in the car driving back to her friend's house, we were supposed to get in her car, but we couldn't find her keys from the incident that happened at the club with her throwing my leather coat on the floor twice to lose her keys.
Get to your house.
Okay. We get to my house. Okay. She's passed out in the car. That's why she doesn't remember how we got to my house. The point is, I took her.
Up. Go ahead.
She's passed out in the back seat. All right. Reason we didn't take her car, couldn't find her keys. I pick her up. I told her inside the house. I put her in the bed. I take her shoes off. I go to cut the light off. She's up and angry, yelling, screaming, pushing me. And I'm just looking at her like, where's this coming from? I wasn't to the fact that I was drunk enough not to drive. I wasn't drunk enough not to handle the situation. The fact of the matter was, she was the aggressor. She started the whole aggression. She started the whole violence of slapping, being very aggressive. It went from shoving me, to pushing her, holding her, pushing her back on the bed, telling her, not do this, you're drunk, lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off, that's all it is, you're drunk. She gets back up, she slaps me. She punched me, I punch her back, and we go back into the whole argument of going back and forth again and again, to the fact that I hold her down on the bed and tell her and beg and plead with her not to keep being aggressive. Just lay down, go to sleep, sleep it off.
Okay.
To that point, we woke up in the morning after.
All right. So let me dissect for you, Mr. Daniel, what you have just told me. What you have just told me was that you were not so drunk that you couldn't drive.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
So you were sober enough to withstand the sobriety test.
Yes, Your Honor.
Fine. And she was so drunk that she was passed out in back of the car.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then you take her home, and
My
she
house.
starts to act aggressive.
Yes, Your Honor.
She punches you, you punch her back.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is the person who was so drunk, this is what you tell me, that she didn't know what was going on. You, on the other hand, are sober.
Yes, Your Honor.
I always love it when they bury themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Shooting fish in a barrel.
Shooting fish in a barrel. All you got to do is let them talk. They make up some cock and bull story, right?
Yep.
That they say, well, this is going to work. She was the aggressor. I could drive because I was okay, right? You can't assault somebody when they're so drunk that they don't know what's going on, Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand where we're going now?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're the sober one.
Yes,
She's drunk. That's according to you. You're the
Yes, Your
defendant.
Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
When she punched you, you should have gotten up, should have gone downstairs, should have gotten in your car, go to a friend's house and say, listen, I'm not going to stay with this lady. She's out of it. She's assaultive. She's nuts. This is the way she gets when she's drunk. I don't want to have anything to do with her. I'm certainly not going to hit her because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not saying I didn't make a mistake, Your Honor.
Good. Mistakes cost.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,600. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I would describe it as her.
Parties in the matter of Damon versus Ressa. Step forward, please.
21-year-old bartender Amber Damon is suing her former friend, 21-year-old subcontractor Samuel Ressa, for crashing her car, forcing her to drop out of fashion school.
According to what I read in your complaint, on the evening of January 26, 2005, you were all out drinking. You had a car. You drove to a bar. You were drinking and had too much to drink. A lot of other people were drinking, too. Somebody wanted to go home. Somebody by the name of Jason. Who's Jason? Raise your hand. You still drink, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah. How did I know that? How did I know that? Jason wanted to go home. You told the defendant, could you take him home? And you gave the defendant your car keys to take Jason home.
He'd already had the car keys.
Whatever. He didn't steal the car keys from you. You gave him the keys. He took Jason home, came back to the bar,
Yes, Your Honor.
and that's the last time you saw your car. The car was subsequently found. It was wrecked a little bit, and it was taken to impound, and you couldn't get your books and stuff for school out of the trunk so that you couldn't go to school, and you ended up losing tuition because you ended up backing out of school for that semester. A whole series of events that you believe should be visited on Mr. Reese's doorstep, right?
Correct.
Because he didn't take good care of the car.
Yes.
Was the car a used car?
Yes.
Was it insured?
Mm-hmm.
Money for it?
No, because the towing place sold it without the lien notice, so they're going to end up having to pay for it.
So you're off the hook with regard to the car.
Yes.
So all you're suing him for is for the trauma that you incurred as a result of missing school because you couldn't get to your books that were inside the car.
Yes. There's more to it than that, though.
Let's hear it fast.
Well, we would go out every Wednesday, and I'd had a couple beers, so I didn't feel comfortable driving. And I thought I was being responsible by asking him to take Jason over to our house. And then he came back safe and sound. And later on, I didn't plan on leaving, so I didn't ask for my keys back or anything. And he had wanted to leave, but I just assumed that he was getting a ride or whatever. And he apparently took my car. So.
It's not what he says. He says he walked home. It was a couple of blocks away.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have stuff, maybe not proving, but it really looks like he took my car.
Well, what do you have that suggests that he took your car later?
Well, I was going to fashion design school, so I remember what people wear. And I specifically remember him wearing a hat when he came back after dropping Jason off. And I found this hat in the car, which is the hat that he was wearing that night.
Miss Damon, I want you to listen to me very carefully, my dear. There is no question in my mind that under the scenario that you gave me, that you had given him the keys to the car, and that was the last time you saw the car, and the car had, in fact, been in an accident. I think I would have been prepared, despite the fact that Mr. Risa says I walked home, to say, it was your responsibility to safeguard this car. Based upon what I read in the papers, the car was found with the keys in the car, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Therefore, if somebody found the keys, they had to be very smart to find the keys and say, I think I'm going to go try the ignitions of all the cars. And I'm going to go check all the cars and see if any of this fits. So I think I would have been able to say, with a fair degree of certainty, that the defendant was responsible for your car. But you have no out-of-pocket expenses for your car. You want him to pay for your school tuition. And I'm telling you, Miss Damon, you have to be more resourceful, my dear. There are methods that you can use to get your books out of the trunk of the car so that you can study and go to school without dropping out of school. That's not his fault.
There was no way that I could get them because they were no longer there. And there was also the police department was throwing me around, too, because it wasn't registered in my name yet because I hadn't even made a payment on it. I just bought in the car, not even a month before that. So they were telling me I wasn't even going to be able to look at it.
Well, you managed to get the hat. Did you go to your teachers and say, listen, I need a little time, I have to get new books?
We were almost to midterms, and all of the projects led off of each other, so there was no way that I could make them up, and they told me I had to withdraw for that semester.
That's not Mr. Reese's fault, Ms. Thing. I can't legitimately find that your dropping out of school was the proximate cause of Mr. Reese's actions. It doesn't work that way. You have to take a certain amount of responsibility for taking your car, drinking, giving the keys to somebody else. That's partially your responsibility. I would have said Mr. Reese was responsible if you had any out-of-pocket expenses for the car, but not for your school tuition. Sorry, case is dismissed.
Thank you, Why is that excused? You may step out. Count in the matter of McDonald versus Wahab Raciniak. Has been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. McDonald, it is your claim that the defendants filed false charges against you. I believe that the charges emanated from an instance of what we've come to call road rage that happened about a year ago.
That's correct.
The defendant said that you were acting erratically, that what they were trying to do is to secure your license plate number so that they could forward it to the police when this incident occurred. You didn't know each other prior to this incident, is that correct?
No. That's correct.
And you had a trial, Mr. McDonald?
Yes, I did.
And you were acquitted?
I was acquitted on all 3 charges in 37 minutes.
When was the incident?
October 24th, 2004 at 2 o'clock.
And what kind of car were you driving, sir?
I was driving a BMW Z3 convertible with the top down.
Do me a favor. Just let me ask the questions and try to give me just the answers that I need.
You bet.
Where were you going, Mr. McDonald?
I'd seen an open house sign on a street called Edwards, and I was following an open house sign into a track that I'd never been in.
Tell me what happened, Mr. McDonald.
Well, as I was going through the track, I realized that there was a car in front of me. It was driving in an erratic fashion. What I mean by that, it would slow down to about 5 miles an hour, speed up 6.
Listen to me. Don't interrupt him. You're going to have an opportunity to testify. Don't interrupt him. Sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
All of a sudden, I see her kind of go to the right, and I took that as her politely moving off to the right to let me go by.
How many lanes of traffic were there?
This street is a little unusual, and I have a picture over here that I took. If I may move over here to show you. Back here is where I'm seeing all the information going.
I just want to know how large the street was, Mr. McDonald. So that's the street that it was on, so there can be a parked car on either side and 1 lane of traffic.
Easily.
4 car lanes.
Correct.
Keep going.
The minute I went by her car, she lays into the horn, honk, all the way around till I get in front. And I look in my rearview mirror, and simultaneously, I see both fingers go out the window on each side. That kind of set the mood that was going on. And what I did is I gave a wave like this, my error. But I actually thought that was a polite movement on her in the very beginning. So as I go by, and I'm looking in my rear mirror, I see this go on, they make a left turn, and I think, okay, that's the end of it. Instead, they flip a U-turn and now coming at me. They caught me at the stop sign, and his window's down. She pulls a car right up next to me to the left of my side, and there's nothing but screaming going on. So I looked at Miss Resnick, and I said, you're driving like an idiot. And then I turned right, they turned left. I thought that was the end of it. Nope. So I'm going down the street here, and as I go down the street, the road, as it shows, veers off to the left. As soon as I got around that corner, they're right back on my butt again. Now the problem is, I have them, having gone off to the left, time's taken, and I think they've got a weapon with them. They're staying between a half a car length and a car length behind my car.
How fast were you going, Mr. McDonald, at this point?
Probably about 25, 30 at the most.
Did you ever accelerate beyond 25 to
Yes,
30 miles? When?
When we came down the long street after they'd been tailgating me, I spotted people at the very end of the block. I mean, it's like the movie Duel, where I've got these people just bearing down on me. I don't know what they have in their possession.
What kind of car were they driving?
A white Malibu, I think is what it was.
Okay.
Like a mid-sized car. So they're behind me. I see people down at the end of the road. I accelerate and pull immediately in front of their house.
Uncross your hands.
At the exact moment that I get out of my car to yell to somebody to call the police, Miss Resnick takes her car and pulls in front in a wedge fashion.
Okay. So she parks and blocks you.
Correct. And all this whole thing that's going on is predicated on one idea that you said. They wanted to get my license plate. And I could show 15 different times that they could have. The truth meant, sure.
Life has a rhythm to it. There are certain things that are common sense, and there are certain things that are not. You don't have to fill in the blanks for me.
Okay.
If I need for you to fill in the blanks, Mr. McDonald, I'll ask you.
Okay.
Keep going.
So as soon as I get out of the car, she pulls the car over. He jumps out of the car and immediately starts coming toward me. Now, at this point, I take a step toward him, and I say, in the best voice I can, get back in your car.
Okay.
Get back in your car. And it worked. He turned around right there, but Miss Resnick didn't leave it there. She puts her car in reverse. Your Honor, I have the transcripts of the court proceeding. I have it on audio, and I would appreciate to be able to at least play a couple tracks to give you a flavor of what happened.
She put the car in reverse.
Correct.
Go ahead.
And as she put the car in reverse, Mr. Wahab goes back
Wahab. Mr. Wahab. Mr. Wahab.
Sorry.
You have problem controlling yourself, sir?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
You have problem controlling your temper, sir?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Well, it sounds to me as if you do, sir. You don't want to create that kind of impression, do you?
No, I don't.
You see, you've already done it. You only have one chance to make a first impression, Mr. Wahab.
Yes, Your Honor.
You've made a bad one so far.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wahab gets out of the car. I tell him to go back. He gets back in the car.
You told me that already.
As Miss Resnick's backing the car up, he jumps in the car, shuts the door, and you think it would end there. No. She keeps the car coming right back at me. I move out of the way, and just like she did at the stop sign, she stops his car door right here, the window's down, and I said, "Get out of here!" Now, let me back up a minute.
When you said get out of here,
sure.
You made a slapping or punching motion.
Correct.
You hit the car?
Correct.
Did you hit it with your fist, with your hand?
Open right hand.
Okay. Did you kick the car at all?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And then what happened?
So I hit it 3 times, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here, and as I'm saying that, I see Mr. Wahab either rearing back, like he's going to go back and kick me through the window, which I can't believe could be true,
Fine.
or...
You don't know. Don't speculate.
Okay, well, I see something coming at me. And as I lean back to deflect it, she has a car and drive, and they take off.
Okay.
But they don't. She flips the car around and returns.
Oh,
Stop
my
again.
gosh.
Just on the other side of the road. He pops back out again. I say, get back in that car. He gets back in the car instantly. She takes off again. But that's not it. She goes forward again. She stops again. He pops out of the car, but this time, there's a guy that was standing on the other side. A lot of people were evidently watching this thing. He goes over to Mr. Wahab, puts his hand on his shoulder and said, "It's not worth it, it's not worth it." Now, here's what I know.
Don't tell me what you know.
This is what I was thinking.
I don't care what you were thinking.
Okay? I left.
You left. Fine. Do you have a copy of the police report
Yes, I do.
that Ms. Rusniak and Mr. Wahab filed?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please. Now, you were subsequently arrested, is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
What were you charged with, sir?
I was charged with 242 battery of Mr. Wahab, disturbing the peace, challenging to fight against Mr. Wahab, and then vandalism, property, crime against Ms. Resnick.
Who's going to speak for you? Both of you to start? Go ahead.
First, I would like to say that this man really
No, you
did.
put your life in jeopardy.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You had a cell phone.
He incurred attorney fees as a result of false charges filed by Camille Raciniak and Michael Wahab. The couple claims Tim was driving like a maniac.
You put your life in jeopardy. I'm going to tell you why you put your life in jeopardy. Because according to what I read in the police report, your statement, you felt as if this man was driving too fast in a residential street. So you decided to try to get his license plate.
That's not all it was.
That's the reason, because there had been no altercation up until that time.
Actually, there was.
Oh, you explain that to me.
Well, as you see the street here, I live on not this street that's cut off, but the one in front of the Suburban right there.
So?
That's my street. I was turning left onto that street.
So?
He almost caused me to have an accident. He went around me on the left-hand side as I was making my
He
left-hand
was driving, I said, he was driving erratically, and you said he put your life at risk. You put your life at risk.
I admit, I should have never followed him, and I will never do it again.
Right.
I learned my lesson on that
That's right.
But he did physically assault me
Listen to me
and my boyfriend.
Listen to me very carefully. You got hot, and you did a very dumb thing. You followed him, and you chased him several times.
I never...
Yes, you did. You followed him in order to, according to you, get his license plate number. But these are your statements, not mine. You told the police that she was so offended by this vehicle's unsafe driving that they made a U-turn and then made a U-turn back to attempt to get his license plate number of the vehicle to report it to the police. They said they pulled up alongside the vehicle at a stop sign. Well, what'd you do that for? You wanted to get his license plate number, and call the police, but that's not what you did. And asked him why he was driving so recklessly. So let me figure this out. You were very offended by the way he was driving. You made 2 U-turns in order to catch up with him. That's what you told the police, unless you say the police are lying. And you didn't get his license plate, but you pulled up to him and, according to you, said to him in a calm way, "Why are you driving so recklessly?" Do you know how ridiculous that sounds?
No.
Do you know how ridiculous? I'm not saying he's right. I'm saying to you that somewhere between what you're going to tell me and what he told me is the truth. That's probably why the jury acquitted him. Now, who are you? You are two people. He's one person in a car. He doesn't know who you are. He doesn't know whether you have good intentions, bad intentions. He has no clue. All he knows is, according to you, you have turned around and followed him on at least 3 occasions. And at that point, you are two nuts following him, and he doesn't know what you have in mind. So now what you're complaining about is that he dented your car. I would have hit your car. I would have taken a brick and thrown it through the windshield if two people were following me over a dissing incident.
That's not what it was about in the least.
Well, that's what it was about, madam. If you didn't get the license plate number calmly and call the police, you had a cell phone.
No,
Your Honor.
Oh, and you had no pen?
No.
No, I did have a pen, but we were unable to get his license plate number.
He was driving too
and my
fast.
first intention was not to get his license
He
plate
had
number.
pulled over and stopped.
Your Honor, I can prove that they have a cell phone. I can prove it without a doubt.
How can you prove that?
I wasn't on the cell phone up until the point where I tried to call the police, sir.
Ooh, madam, are you telling me that you just lied to me when you said you didn't? I'm speaking. Are you telling me that you just lied to me when you said I didn't have a cell phone?
We don't have a cell phone on us.
Where was the cell phone?
It's not my house.
The house.
Just a second. You say you can show me that she had a cell phone in the car?
What they forgot was that they had called 911 from the cell phone.
Okay,
Yeah.
prove it.
Let me see.
No, I did call.
Mr. Wahab, let me explain to you twice now what you did, sir. You showed me that you cannot control your temper.
I
Two
can
times.
control my temper, Your Honor.
2 times in a courtroom. So if you can't control yourself in a courtroom, what are you doing out in the street when somebody drives by and flips off your girlfriend? Ooh.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If somebody had...
Fellow motorists Camille Raciniak and Michael Wahab chased him down during an incident on the road. He is suing for a false police report.
You have something that's going to show me that they had a cell phone?
Correct.
Show me.
I also have audio tape of the transcripts.
Okay, what kind of car was it? It was a convertible red BMW 2-door. And it was a male driver? Yes. He has some issues. Okay, what's the cell phone number you're calling from? 714. Okay.
2 things I'll show Your Honor, if I may.
But just 1 second. Mr.
Sure.
McDonald, that doesn't demonstrate to me that they had a phone in the car.
No,
That...
I'm sorry, but I actually have her statement in court saying that she called on the way back to the
let me
house.
see. I'd like to see that.
And I also have the certified copy of the
Your
transcripts
Honor?
complete.
He said that we pulled over to a red curb on the street. There's no red curb on that street,
Mr.
though.
Wahab, we're not talking about red
All right,
curb,
I'm sorry.
sir. The first thing
I don't
I'm
even know why I'm here today.
Just a second. Well, look at me, and I'm going to tell you. You're here today because he's suing you.
Yeah, obviously.
He's suing you, and one of the things that surprised me about Ms. Rusniak's call to the police is her statement to the police, which I believe said something, and I'm paraphrasing, the guy's got some serious issues. Well, I want to tell you something. If somebody had just assaulted my passenger, as you claim, I wouldn't have said this guy in a BMW had some serious issues. I would have said, this guy driving erratically has just assaulted my passenger. He kicked and punched my car. Something is clearly wrong with him. Not in a almost lackadaisical way. I'm speaking. Almost, we can hear it again. Almost lackadaisical way. You're reporting that this guy's got some issues.
The operator never let us finish our statement.
Let me tell you something. I heard this very, very clearly. Nobody cut you off.
No.
Nobody cut you off.
He didn't play the whole tape.
You know when I said to you before, life has a rhythm, and if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. Somebody in my apartment in the middle of the night takes a knife and puts it to my throat and assaults me. While they're leaving, they steal a teacup. When I call 911, I don't say somebody just came into my house and stole a teacup. I say someone came into my house, put a knife to my throat, and assaulted me. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes,
I heard him in the background.
He was freaking out, and I was trying to be the calm one.
I heard him in the background. All right, let me see where you say she had the cell phone in the car.
Page 31, line 8
Okay.
in the transcript. I have the excerpts, and then I have, and that's a certified transcript.
Now, Mr. McDonald, you think I'm finished with you? I haven't started with you yet.
Okay.
Because I can tell what happened here. Anybody who's lived as long as I have knows exactly what happened.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm not sure you weren't behaving a little erratically, and I'm not sure you didn't lose your temper and didn't use a lot of foul language.
I don't use foul language at all, Your Honor. Not at all.
Not according to the witnesses, sir. According to the witnesses, they say that you were using a little foul language.
That's where they're...
That may be.
That's where it fell apart in court. They never showed up.
Well, they may not have showed up for whatever reason, but that's what the witnesses said initially when they spoke to the police, whether they didn't want to get involved, whether they were neighbors, who knows. Page what?
Page 31, I believe it was line 8.
That's what you said, my dear. I'm going to read it to you. You backed up to help your boyfriend get into the car quicker, right? Yes. And then you leave. Yes. Okay, and you don't see the BMW anymore, correct? Not after I drove off. Okay, do you remember when you called 911? Yes, it was right as I was driving away.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
No, because...
Well, that's what it says. Now, I would assume that the trial of this case, you remember things more clearly than you do today because it was closer in time to the event. Aside from the fact it doesn't make sense. Everybody keeps their cell phone in a car. So the fact that you say to me I didn't have my cell phone in the car was a crock. How much did this whole escapade cost you, Mr. McDonald?
He was able to do it for $3,500 as long as I supplied him with all the information.
But in court, you said that you got acquitted in 37 minutes. We were there.
No, it doesn't matter. It also, you said
Listen
that you
to
never
me.
touched my...
Third time, you couldn't control yourself. Not the first, not the second. Third time, you couldn't control yourself. So you can't control yourself, and she doesn't know how to tell the truth. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's all.
And, Your Honor, you're
Step
aware
out.
that I have judgments against each of it individually, correct?
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's it. You got it.
Angelina Morales is suing fellow partygoer 18-year-old Sean Swales for stealing her camera. Sean denies the charge.
Miss Morales, it is your claim that the defendant, who was a guest in your boyfriend's house,
Yes.
stole your camera.
Yes.
And you want him to pay for it.
Yes.
Mr. Swales acknowledges that he had your camera in his possession, but says that he found it outside of the house. He's going to tell me what he did with it, and it is not his fault. Correct?
Yes.
On what date did you lose your camera? And I put the word lose loosely.
The party was August 12th. I went to bed around 1 o'clock.
Party was at your boyfriend's house?
Yes.
How many people were there?
Roughly 15 to 17 people.
And according to what I read in your complaint, you were the photographer. You were taking pictures.
Yeah.
What kind of camera were you using?
It was an Olympus S50 Zoom, a very expensive camera.
When had you purchased it?
In 2003.
How big a camera is it?
It was small, probably about this size.
Okay, when you finished taking the pictures, what did you do with the camera?
I put it in my tote bag, which was in the guest room on the guest bed, and I had put my clothing over it, and then I went and slept in my boyfriend's room.
And you remember distinctly that that's where you put it?
Yes. I wasn't drinking. Everyone else in the house was. I remember where I put my equipment.
What happened the next morning?
I woke up really early. I went straight for my tote bag, looked in my tote bag.
What made you look in it?
It had my clothes and my makeup and everything. And I also like to look at the pictures I take the night before. So I was looking for my camera. Couldn't find it. I basically freaked out because my camera is my whole life.
No.
It sounds very materialistic, but it is. It's what I go to school for. And to lose something like that, it's heartbreaking. And I know where I put my camera. It was in my bag when I went to bed.
Got it.
And it wasn't there in the morning.
Well, what makes you think that the defendant had anything to do with it?
It was about a week later I found out he is a friend of our friend who called him out on it. He admitted it. And then I sent him...
Well, that I can't accept because I don't have that person here.
Well, he said he found a camera.
Okay, now tell me where the camera is, sir.
Well, actually what happened is we walked outside, camera inside a bag, which we didn't know at the time. We picked it up thinking it fell out of the car.
Who's we?
Me and my girlfriend. She was with me the whole time. Pick it up thinking it fell out of the car like it's one of the friends. We looked through it, nothing in there, like no ID or anything like that. So.
What else was in the bag?
There was a bracelet.
Was there a bracelet in your bag?
My camera wasn't in a bag.
Was there a bracelet along with the camera?
No.
You say no. Okay. Inside the bag was a camera and a bracelet.
Yeah.
I want you to describe the bracelet.
The bracelet, it was...
Just a second.
Yeah.
Did your girlfriend see the bracelet?
Yeah.
This is your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Put her outside.
Angelina Morales claims fellow partygoer Sean Swales stole her camera. Sean claims he did no such thing.
All right, Mr. Swales, now I want you to describe first The makeup bag, or the bag that you found the camera in, what color was it?
Makeup bag. There's polka dots on it, definitely. And my
polka dots.
From what my girlfriend says, it's a really expensive makeup bag.
No, just a second. Polka dots. What color was the bag?
I'd say like white polka dots.
White polka dots,
dark,
and what was
black,
the background?
I don't know. It was dark. Didn't really like
Dark.
look too much at it. Yeah.
Okay, now I want you to describe the bracelet to me.
The bracelet. I mean, I can't really describe it as a bracelet.
Yes,
chain.
you can. You can tell me whether it was white gold, yellow gold. You can tell me whether it was silver.
Thinking maybe silver or something like that. I don't know.
Did it have any stones in it?
I don't think so. No.
Was it a hard or a soft bracelet? Could you move it around?
It was like a chain somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else in the bag?
And that was about it. Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
What we did is we got into the car, we started driving back, and as we get dropped off, we were in the car for about 8 minutes. We get out and we're like, wait a minute, the camera's still in there. So we just left it in there, you know?
No, I don't understand this. Mr. Swale, let's start again. You take the polka dot bag, which contains a camera and a bracelet, and you bring it into the car with you. Did you ever find out whose bracelet it was?
Yes, Amanda, and we returned the bag to her, and she has her own camera. Amanda was the person that was inside the car with us.
Well, was it her camera?
Yep.
So what you're telling me is the bag that you found contained a camera and a bracelet, both of which belonged to Amanda.
Yes.
Who returned it to Amanda?
Brooke did.
Who's Brooke?
My girlfriend.
So your girlfriend returned the camera and the bracelet in the bag.
No, not the camera, just the bracelet in the bag.
What happened to the camera?
The camera was left in the car as she grabbed it when she got out at her spot that she got out at.
So your girlfriend grabbed the bag, but the camera was not in the bag.
Camera was not in the bag. We had the bag, took the camera out, looked at it, set it in the car. We actually mistakenly took the bag, and we ended up finding out it was Amanda's.
Now sit down. Now you can go and bring me back the lovely
Brooke.
Brooke. All right, Brooke, what I want you to do first is describe to me this bag that you found that contained the camera.
It was polka dot, black and pink, I think.
And what was in it?
The camera and a silver bracelet.
Describe the bracelet to me.
It was silver. I think it was just like a...
Now, when you got out of the car, what did you do with the bag?
Put it in my purse.
Where was the camera?
Inside the car.
Neither you nor Mr. Swale saw the camera again?
No, didn't.
Okay, great. Now you can stand up. Okay, Miss Morales.
I talked with Amanda after I found out who took my camera.
You can't tell me what Amanda said to you, Miss Morales.
Okay. Well, basically, I called them out on it.
Called who out on it?
Called the defendants out. I asked them if I could have my camera back. I wrote them an email. He said they took it in the car with them. His girlfriend says it was my camera, and I just...
Well, I'd like to see where she says it was her camera.
No, she says it was my camera. Somehow my camera found its way outside.
It is possible that they or somebody else took the camera out of that bag, but you have to have proof.
But they said they had it in the car with them, and it's not in the car.
But there were other people in the car, Miss Morales.
There was one other person I did not know in the car, and I...
One other person is all you need. One other person is all you need.
She has a camera of her own. She wouldn't take it.
Listen to me. That's not something that I know for a fact. What you have to do is you come into court and accuse somebody of really committing a crime. I don't know whether they took your camera or not. It's possible that they did. I don't know. But you don't have sufficient proof, even a little bit of proof, that they took it. And I assume that everybody was drinking at this party?
Yes.
So they got into a car, and it's possible that the camera was in the car along with this bag. It fell out of the bag. It was left in the car, and who knows what happened. Maybe somebody who was driving that day parked it someplace, and some stranger looked in the car and said, there's a camera laying on the back seat. Opened the door, reached in and took the camera. All kinds of possibilities. But unfortunately, and I know that you say this camera is your life, you don't have sufficient proof for me to make a determination that these people are responsible for that camera.
But they physically took it from the party into...
No, you don't have any proof of that.
They admit taking it.
No, they don't. They admit finding it on the street. They don't admit taking it from the party.
But they didn't even have the responsibility to come back into the house and ask whose camera it was?
No. Two drunk people got into a car, they took it, they left it in the car. Negligent? Perhaps. But they don't have responsibility, and I don't think that you can prove that they stole it. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to find another way to replace this camera. Your case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We didn't take the camera.
Found in the matter of Kahn versus Williams.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
What's your first name?
Amanda.
Yours?
Rashonda.
Ms. Kahn, you don't know anything about this other than the fact that your daughter was injured. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
And you weren't there, so you have no idea what was going on in school that day between your niece and the plaintiff's daughter. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can sit down. The girls remain standing. Okay. Amanda, how long have you been going to school with Rashonda?
I think 2 years.
Is that about right?
Ever since we started school.
How many years ago was that?
1 year. I just met her this year.
Were you friends?
Yes.
Were you friends?
Yes.
Now, your claim is that she assaulted your daughter. Yes, that's what this is all about. So before that day, had you had any trouble with Rashonda?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, usually she started calling me names.
What kind of names would she call you?
She called me stupid, ugly, 4 eyes.
Did you have any friends in class?
Only one friend.
And what about Rashonda? Did she have friends?
Yes.
Were they nice to you or were they mean to you also?
They was mean to me also.
Why did you call Amanda names?
No, that didn't happen.
Look. Look at me.
No, I didn't call her names like that.
What names did you call her?
None.
Huh?
None.
I believe her when she says you called her names.
No, I did not call her names.
I believe her when she says you called her names. Do you want to know why?
Yes.
Because this young lady wouldn't stand up there and embarrass herself by saying to me that you called her stupid.
Okay.
Unless you called her names. Do you understand?
Yes.
So when I ask you a question, you're going to give me a truthful answer. You're not going to make up a story. Otherwise, things are not going to go well for you. Do I make myself clear?
Yes.
Now I'm going to ask you again. Why would you call her names? Answer the question.
I did not call her any names.
Did your friends call her names?
No.
Why would you think this little girl would tell me that somebody called her stupid and 4 eyes and all kinds of nasty names if nobody called her those names?
I don't know.
Really? All right, tell me what happened next.
She got a butterfly pen of mine. It's this right here.
How did she get it?
It was inside my school bag. It was open.
Where was your school bag?
It was under my desk.
Did you see her take it out of your school bag?
No.
So what happened when you saw her with your butterfly pen?
I said, Rashonda, can I please have my pen? I called her 4 times to get her.
Where did she go when she took your pen?
She went over to a nest, couple of desks. And I told Rashonda, could you please get off my pen?
And what did she say?
She kept on ignoring me. She didn't even say nothing.
So what did you do?
I walked up to her and snatched it away from her.
You snatched the pen out of her hand?
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then that's when she ducked down under my desk, got these books right here, and hold it up in the air like this. And then I was trying to jump up to get it, and then that's when I finally got it. That's when she punched me on the head. That's where I fell on the floor, started crying.
Hear your version of the story.
Yes, it was the next period, and our math teacher was coming. And he asked us to partner up with people. So it was her, Patricia, and some boys over there. So Patricia said, Rashonda, can you come here? And I was like, yes. And it was a pen on the desk, and I thought it was Patricia's because she had a pen like that before. So I picked it.
Patricia had a pen like that before when?
When she first came to the classroom.
What day?
I don't know.
Did Patricia tell you you could take her pen?
No.
The attitude's just going to get worse.
Mm.
She live with you?
Mm-hmm.
Good luck. So you took a pen that didn't belong to you, whether it belonged to Patricia or Amanda, and you took it off a desk.
Yes.
Whose desk was it?
It was a boy's desk, but he wasn't there. He was absent, and then Eugene was sitting in the desk. So
you're telling me Eugene had this pink pen on his desk? Rashonda, are you telling me that a boy was using... Pick up the pen. Shh. A boy was using that pen? Look at the pen. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
So you picked up the pen because it was a boy's pen, but you thought it was Patricia's. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
And then what happened?
So then I picked up a book off the floor.
You picked what?
Book off the floor.
What book?
It was like a regular book.
What do you mean you picked it up off the floor? What'd you pick it up off the floor for?
Because I wanted to, so I picked it up off the floor.
Just a second, I don't understand. Was it your book that you picked up off the floor or somebody else's book that you picked up off the floor?
It was a book.
Was it your book or somebody else's book?
It was my book.
So you picked up your book off the floor?
Yes.
And what did you do with it when you picked it up off the floor?
I had it in my hand. She snatched it.
Just a second. You held it in your hand?
Yes.
You held your book in your hand?
Yes.
And she snatched it out of your hand. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Where was the pen?
In my hand.
Well, which hand were you holding the pen in? Show me. And which hand were you holding the book in? And where were you holding the book?
She snatched the pen out of my hand, and then I picked up the book. She snatched it. She pushed me once.
Oh, here we go. So you picked up the book after she snatched the pen out of your hand.
Yes.
But you told me it was your book. Or was it her book?
It was my book.
So you're telling me that you were protecting your book.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's the same story you told me in your answer, that you picked up your book? Or you think it was a different story? You get where I'm going. You're a fibber. Now, I hope your aunt knows that. And I hope your aunt knows that you have attitude. Bad attitude. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great. Good. Because you really have to do something about it now before it gets out of hand. Do you understand that? Let's stand up, please.
Well, it really seems like y'all getting on her side and y'all picking on me.
No, we're only picking on you here, Rashonda, because you didn't tell the truth, my dear.
She didn't
I
either.
told you, when we start, get your hands off your hips. No attitude here. And you know whose that is?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You don't want people to...
Was teased and assaulted by classmate Roshonda Williams. Amanda claims Roshonda socked her in the face during class.
Rashonda, I believe that you were picking on her. I believe that you called her names. And if you had said to me, when I asked you the question at the beginning, yeah, I did call her names. I'm sorry, it wasn't the right thing to do. But I didn't hit her. Or, I'm sorry I called her names and we got into an argument. She pushed me and I hit her, so it was really a fair fight. That I accept. But when you start out lying and telling me that you didn't call her names, and I know you did, then we get off on the wrong foot. Do you understand?
Yes.
Does she live with you? Are you her
Yes.
guardian?
I'm not her guardian. But
Who is?
My grandmother, but she couldn't come because of medical reasons.
But you live in the household?
Yes.
Who goes to school when she has a problem?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes my grandma do.
How many times have you gone to school because she's had a problem?
Not a lot.
How many?
I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times.
3 or 4 times. You. And how many times has your grandmother gone to school because she's had a problem?
I don't know. I work in the day, so.
Well, you said sometimes you, sometimes her
Yeah.
grandmother.
Yeah.
So her grandmother had to go twice?
Maybe. I don't know.
You went 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's too many times. She's got a bad attitude.
I know.
Good. Is she getting help for her bad attitude?
Yes.
What kind of help is she getting for her bad attitude?
She go to, like, after-school programs and stuff. Like, I'm not trying to make it seem like she's a good kid, because every kid, you know, go through things.
No.
Well, majority of the kids do.
No, you're wrong.
Well,
No, you're wrong. Some kids can be cruel. Some kids can be unkind. But the majority of the kids who go to school don't have to have a parent or guardian come up 6 times at least because they're having trouble. And the majority of the kids don't have... She went to a police mediation about this?
yeah.
How many kids do you think that are her
But it
age?
was unnecessary, though. I have a paper that says that she hit her first.
Let me see.
And I was defending myself.
Let me see. You have a paper that said she hit her first?
She pushed Rashonda.
Ah, that's a different story.
All right, but she still put her hands on her first, though.
She stole her property.
She didn't steal it. She picked it
stole...
up off the desk.
Listen to me. What she did was, you were getting along much better when you understood the dynamics of what was going on here.
And I
Miss Attitude picked up the pen knowing it belonged to her. She asked for it back. Miss Attitude didn't give it to her back. She grabbed it away from her and probably pushed her. I agree with you. That's what happened. Then she went down and picked up the books. Those books that belong to Amanda. Whose books are those?
Mine.
Okay, she picked not her books. Do you understand? So books it was. She thought about it and she said, I picked up my book. Well, that doesn't even make sense. Why would she pick up her book and hold it over her head? Do you understand? The problem is she's not only got attitude, but she's stupid because she can't think of why, logically, she would want to hold her book over her head.
But do you think that was right?
Listen to me. She was picking on her. But listen to me. She was picking on her. As part of the picking on her process, she took her pen and didn't return it. It was
She got it, so I didn't return it if she got it.
Don't speak to me until I speak to you. Do we understand each other? You may be able to get away with your attitude with your grandmother, maybe with your aunt, maybe with your friends. You do not get away with that attitude with me. It's nice to be nice to people. And if somebody you think isn't as smart as you are, doesn't have the friends you do, the nice thing is not to pick on them. The nice thing is to try to be nice to them, because that's what you would like. You see, you don't want people to be nasty to you like I am, right? You don't want people to make fun of you like I am. You want people to be nice to you. And if you want people to be nice to you, you have to be nice to them. Do we understand each other?
Yes.
Good. Now you can stand up. Can I see the medical report, please?
Your Honor, there wasn't any medical bills, but she has to be taught that she cannot bully my daughter.
Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. As much as I explained it to her, she now understands for today that you can either be nice to people or you can be unkind to people. I've explained that lesson to her. I've just been very unkind to her for the last 15 minutes. She doesn't like it. So she has a choice. And the choice for the rest of her life is, if you are in what you consider, my dear, a superior position, smarter, have more friends, more popular and whatever, you can make somebody else's life miserable, or you can say, I want to be kind. I could have been kind to you. I chose not to be. You now have the drill. She's a little girl, and she may not be as smart as you are. She may not be as popular as you are. She may not have the kind of friends that you do. That means that you're supposed to go the extra mile to be nice to her. Put your hand down. Nice to her. I want you to remember how badly you feel right now. Can't control your crying. Can't control how you feel. Because that's the way somebody who you tease and make fun of, they feel all the time. Do you understand? Yes. Good. You had no out-of-pocket expenses? That's correct. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $10. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
23-year-old Jason Brinkhurst is suing his ex-girlfriend, 25-year-old Anna Kirshen, for the unpaid balance on an apartment lease. Anna claims it was Jason who left her.
Mr. Brinkhurst, the defendant was your girlfriend. You lived together on a lease that you both signed. You moved out because you weren't getting along, and you claim she owes you for some rent that you paid, as well as a settlement that you made with the landlord after Miss Kirshen was evicted. She says this is all your fault. You shouldn't have left her in a situation where she was totally responsible for the rent. Who is this?
My boyfriend.
What is he here for?
He's just here for moral support.
All right. When did you sign the lease, Mr. Brinkhurst?
January of 2004, or 2005, I apologize.
When did you move out?
I moved out August 12th.
Entire rent was $800, is that right?
Yes.
And you were splitting all the bills. It was my understanding that you had agreed for the duration of the lease, which was September, October, November, and December, 4 months, to contribute the $400 towards the rent. Is that correct? Did you pay $400 in September?
Yes, I did.
You did that by depositing it directly into her checking account.
Yes.
Ms. Kirshen, now comes the big question. Did you pay rent in September?
I paid it in September, yes.
You have proof that you paid September's rent?
I don't.
Did you pay October's rent?
Yes.
And how did you pay October's rent?
I believe I gave her the cash that month.
Did you pay October's rent?
I had a situation where...
Did you pay October's rent?
I didn't, no.
Why not?
I had a check that bounced, and I didn't realize it.
I'm waiting for the explanation.
I put the check in, and I didn't hear anything back from it. I cashed out my 401k, and I assumed that was in my account, and so therefore I used the money to pay my car payment without realizing that that check had bounced. And then I talked to the apartments, and they told me it had.
Whatever. It's very convoluted, but rent, you did not pay your half of the rent, so October's rent was not paid.
October's rent ended up not being paid, correct.
Did you pay November's rent?
No, I got evicted in November.
So this is what your lawsuit is, because after she was evicted, your landlord said in order to get you out of the lease, you settled with the landlord for $2,500.
I settled with the attorney for the landlord.
Let me see those papers. Okay, because that would have been your rent and late fees anyway for the entire apartment until the termination of the lease.
Yes.
Do you think she should be responsible for the whole thing?
Yes, I do.
And the $400 that she used of your money from October to pay her other bills, to pay her car payment. I certainly think that she's responsible for half the $2,500 because you had obligated yourself in your agreement with her to pay half.
Correct.
All right, so that's $1,250 plus your $400 is $1,650. Now, Ms. Kirchen, you are going to explain to me why you are not responsible for this $1,650.
I lost my job at the end of September.
Well, that's not his fault. That's your fault.
I understand that, and I know that. He knew that I didn't have a job, and he still insisted on leaving and knowing that I didn't have the money to pay for the apartment. He left me with, I mean, in a horrible situation.
He didn't leave you in a horrible situation. He left you in a very good situation. You weren't getting along. You're not married. Things were evidently had reached a point where it was a good idea for one of you to move out. You decided to stay. He's a good guy. He says, I'm not leaving you high and dry. I'm not living here. I'm going to pay for rent someplace else. But I'm going to give you half the rent for the duration of the lease. All you have to do is take care of your half, which you had been doing anyway.
But he told me he wouldn't pay for November and December, that was my responsibility.
Yeah, because you took his $400 and you used it to make a car payment.
This was before that agreement was made.
No. No, I don't believe that. The agreement was that he would pay the $400. You gave me some convoluted cock and bull story that you bounced a check and it would be 401k and all that other kind of nonsense. And the truth of the matter is, you took his $400 and you used it to pay for your own bills. And you were dishonest with the landlord and you were dishonest with him. I don't blame him for not wanting to give you another $400. I just want to make your car payment every month. You owe him $1,650. You living with him now? Is he living with you?
No.
What kind of moral support is that? Judgment for the plaintiff.
Jeff and Jasmine Carno are suing their former roommate, 20-year-old Brooke Slattery, for breaking their lease shortly after she lost her job.
Mr. and Mrs. Carno, you knew the defendant and decided some time ago to rent a house with her.
Correct.
And it is your claim that after a couple of months, after all three of you signed the lease, she moved out.
Correct.
You want her to pay the balance of the original lease, which was 10 months.
Correct.
10 months that you paid the rent without her contribution. Ms. Slattery says that, A, you had an agreement that she was going to move out, that you have her security deposit. She wants her security deposit back. She says that you asked her to leave. More importantly to me is, I understand that the lease was signed about a year ago. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me when.
We signed it in January. January 15th.
Women know dates. January of 05, and it was a 2-year lease. When did you move out?
I think I moved out in March, even though I had paid through the month of March.
March of 05.
Correct.
Well, 10 months later, you're suing her for the 10 months of rent.
Correct.
What took you so long?
Talking to various people about it and asking the landlord what was the next step.
No, that's not true.
That was.
Is it?
Yes, it's true.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I work for the airlines.
What do you do for the airlines?
I'm a ramp agent.
For how long?
Going on a month now.
Before that, what did you do?
I worked for a different airline.
As what?
A ramp agent also.
For how long?
A year.
When you moved into this apartment together, because I've read both the complaint and answer, the two of you had bad credit, is that correct?
Correct.
And they would not have leased the apartment to you without her credit?
No.
No, that's not true. The landlord had stated to us, because we had talked to him after she moved out.
I'm not talking about after she moved out. Okay. I'm talking about before she moved out and before you signed the lease. The two of you had bad credit. From what?
From previous credit cards from when I was younger and not paying them.
And how was your credit?
I was 19, so I was just building my credit, but as far as it was all good.
Why did you leave in March?
I left because after I moved in, I realized how mean of a person Jeff was, and I didn't want to live with him. I didn't feel comfortable being around him, and I just wanted out of the situation. I wanted to separate myself from them.
Fine. Did you have a conversation with them?
I did. I had a conversation with them and told them that I wanted to move out. They were fine with it at first. That same week I had moved out, they told me Jeff lost his job. Then all of a sudden they didn't want me moving out. Yeah. All of a sudden they didn't want me moving out. I couldn't move out. I had to still pay rent, this and that. And nasty words were exchanged to the point where they said, you know what, you're right, we want you out anyways. So at that point, both parties were happy with what was going on.
When you left, did you take furniture with you?
I had taken all of my belongings, but I had left my bed and a love seat there. I never thought that we were on horrible terms because those things were left there. Months later, I came and ended up picking them up. There was no problem with that.
Were they at home when you came to get
Jasmine was at work and told me I could go in through the sliding door and pick up the sofa. When I came to pick up the box spring, it was already outside.
Well, that wasn't too friendly.
It being outside? Oh, I didn't mind.
Now, in March, she left. Is that right?
No.
No.
When did she leave?
Okay. She called us.
When did she leave is my question.
The beginning of April.
All right, so she left in April.
Yes.
What efforts did you make to find a new roommate between April and 2006?
We posted on Craigslist. And
Show me.
I don't
have it with us. But
Well,
it
where did you think you were
expires-
coming to today?
Well, it expires after 30 days.
It expires after 30 days, and we didn't have a copy of it.
Should have a copy of it.
Didn't think it was that big of an issue.
Well, it is a big issue. Why are you not suing her for the remainder of the 2-year lease, only for the last 10 months?
Because we're only suing for the months that she hasn't been there, not the months coming.
Why?
Because she hasn't proven that she's not going to be there.
That's baloney. How many rooms in this house?
3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms?
Yes.
Do you plan on using 1 bedroom for the new baby?
Yes, we do. And that's why we are not suing for the rest of it, the lease.
You see what I'm talking about? When I don't get an answer from you that's honest.
No,
No, him.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
I asked you why you're not suing her for the entire 2-year lease. And you started to give me a lot of baloney when the answer is what?
Now we're using it for the baby now.
And you don't want a stranger living with you.
Correct.
Well, that's the reason why you didn't start in earnest looking for a new roommate. Or did you say to her, you're going to have to find a new roommate?
No, we didn't.
Put your hand down.
We did not want her to find us another roommate because she was threatening us.
Just a minute. Yeah. So you didn't want her to find you a new roommate?
No, I don't trust her. I don't trust her. She is...
Now, you have no proof to show me that you then, since you don't want her to mitigate the damages of the 10 months, because you don't trust her to find you someone suitable.
Right.
You're going to have to prove to me that you advertised for another roommate for the last 10 months.
I'm sorry, we don't have it. Can I tell you my side of the story now? Can I let you know what really happened and not what her side? Because sure. She called us at the beginning of April and told us that she lost her job, she had gotten back with her boyfriend, and she couldn't afford to live there anymore. And we never agreed to her moving out. We had told her that we were against her moving out because she signed the lease, and that's lame.
Keep going. So you were not in agreement with her moving out?
So we were not in agreement. She started to threaten us. She told me that she was going to have parties at the house, bring drugs and alcohol into the house around my son. So, you know, at that point, I wanted her out.
Okay.
And so she moved out. She took her stuff. And she
that's what she says in her answer. You told her to move.
But she did not take her stuff until the middle of April.
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
What difference does it make?
Well,
what she said was you told her to move out.
No, I didn't tell her to move out.
After she had made threats.
Yeah.
We wanted her out after she made threats because we didn't feel safe in the house.
Okay, good. Then you should have immediately started advertising for the next 10 months for a roommate and not waited 10 months and then come to court and say, now I want her to pay. When the truth is in, you asked her to leave, and then you did not attempt to mitigate your damages by finding another roommate. If you tell me that you would not have permitted her to find you a third roommate,
right.
She's not responsible for the rent.
But even though she signed a 2-year lease?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You told her to leave, and you told her
No, I didn't tell her to leave.
Oh, yeah, that's what you told me. You said, that's what he told.
We told her to leave after she had made threats.
Listen to me. Then you deal with it another way. Then you don't wait 10 months and expect to come to court and to get a windfall.
I'm not expecting a windfall. I'm expecting a contract that was signed in parties for a 2-year agreement to be honored.
Yeah, you told her to leave.
After she had made threats, which deemed unsafe to our household.
Well, that's what you say, and what I'm telling you is you had an obligation then to find another roommate. Found out she was pregnant, you knew you needed the room, you wait 10 months, and then you come to court and say, now I want $5,000 from her for the last 10 months. That is not going to happen.
But it's fair for her to leave us.
That is not going to happen.
May I say
because
something,
if
please?
she did not leave, and you told her to leave, and you wanted her out of your place, what was going to happen was she might do things that you didn't like, the police were going to get called, somebody was going to have a problem. Or if not, all 3 of you were going to have a problem. So the wise thing for her to do was to leave. Then, either she has a responsibility to find you another roommate to mitigate damages, which your wife told me she wouldn't have permitted because she doesn't trust her judgment, or you have the responsibility to find another roommate to mitigate damages. I find that you did not do that. So you get nothing. Okay. You have a security deposit. When she moved out, did you note anywhere that there was damage to the apartment?
No.
She gets her security back on the counterclaim in the amount of $5,000.
Gutowski versus Gately Creason. Step forward.
Mary Gutowski is suing Sherry Gately and Lynn Creason for damage to her car accidentally caused by their children. Sherry and Lynn claim Mary's car was parked illegally.
All right. No. Why don't you sit down and you two stand up? Thank you, Bert. Ms. Katowski, it is your claim that these two young people were sort of messing around. One of them fell into your car. I think it was the young man causing a dent.
Yes, ma'am.
You want their parents to be responsible because your car was damaged. They don't think their kids are responsible for denting your car, but we're going to find out. Aren't we?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
When was Ms. Katowski's car dented?
19th.
Of what?
September.
Look, you smart kids. September 19th, 2005, outside the school.
Yes, ma'am.
What school?
Whitthorne Middle School.
Are you friends?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been friends?
Just the school year.
What time was Mrs. Katowski's car dented?
School gets out about 2:45, so around 2:45.
What's your first name?
Bradley.
Bradley. How did her car get dented? What was used to dent her car?
We were playing around, and I was running backwards and tripped off the concrete pavement, and I was backwards, and I hit my head below the windshield.
So it got dented with your head?
Yes, ma'am.
Mary Gutowski says 12-year-old Bradley Gately and 13-year-old Sarah Creason had her car while goofing around after school.
Now, Bradley, what you said to me was very interesting at first. You said to me, Bradley, that you were playing around.
No.
Who were you playing around with?
Sarah.
How were you playing around?
We were poking each other.
Show me how you were doing that. Did she poke you a little harder at some point?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that how you tripped?
No, I was running backwards. That's it.
You were running backwards so that she couldn't poke you?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I got it. So you were sort of running away from her.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, your parents say that it's not your fault because Miss Katowski's car was parked in a no parking zone.
Yes, ma'am.
That's your defense, among other things. First, that they weren't fooling around. Second, that the damage wasn't as extensive as she claims. But most importantly, that the reason that her car was dented is because she was in a no parking zone. Who came up with that defense? Raise your paw.
The claim on the report...
Stand up when you're talking.
The claim on the report that the SRO, which is a school resource officer given, claimed vandalism. And in my knowledge, vandalism is an intentional destruction of whether private or public property. And
what's your last name?
Gately.
Miss Gately, I want to know who came up with the defense that the reason her car got damaged was because she was parked in a no parking zone.
The reason I felt that it wasn't their responsibility, the cars normally are not parked in that area, and the children, he was running backwards, and he didn't expect for a car to be there because there are not supposed to be cars there. So he wasn't being cautious.
Listen to me. Do you know that if the car wasn't there, he could have gotten seriously injured? Because
Well, he could have busted
Listen to me.
behind.
Listen to me. I'm speaking. Because instead of hitting a car, which broke his fall, he would have gone directly to the pavement.
It's still illegal for her to be parked there, and I just...
Your Honor, I have some pictures.
Now, you hit the back of her car?
No.
Okay. Is the dent you're talking about right below the window?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Would you please, Bert, show this photograph to the two parents? What year vehicle do you have, Ms. Katowski?
It's a 93 Pontiac, Montana.
They can take the dent out of the back for about $400.
I've gotten it fixed.
Cost you $416? Is that what it cost?
Mm-hmm.
But she also didn't return our calls when we tried to work it out with her.
That's not so. I called them.
I asked you if you would please send me pictures and estimates, and I gave you my address at home and my telephone number at home. And you were going to send me those estimates so that we could discuss it and work it out.
We didn't talk
and I never
about
got one thing.
No, we didn't.
Listen to me. You're not talking to each... Listen to me. Don't talk to each other. That time's past. You're Bradley's mother?
Yes, ma'am.
He's more responsible than you are. Told me the truth. So did she. And I get the sense, accepted responsibility for the fact that they were messing around. They didn't mean to cause any damage. They did cause damage. As between her and you, she's not responsible. You're responsible. And it seemed to me from one to the other, you tried to make a whole host of excuses as to why your children, and therefore you, were not responsible to fix her car. And that's the wrong message to send to your kids, to try to make excuses and try to find a way to avoid responsibility. I'm surprised at you. Shame on you.
That was
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $416.
That's case number 499 on the calendar in the matter of Hydorn. It's been sworn in. You may be seated, folks. Have a
Thank
seat.
you, Fred.
You're welcome.
Ms. Hydorn, it is your claim that Ms. Anderson filed some false charges against you, requiring you to seek the assistance of counsel. You want her held responsible for your counsel fees. Those charges were subsequently dismissed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Anderson says that you had a responsibility to act in a more professional manner, and she had every right to complain about your behavior. So I'm going to go to Ms. Anderson and ask her version of what happened on, what's the date?
September 12th, 2005.
What caused you to report Ms. Heidhorn's behavior to the police, starting with how you know each other and where this happened?
I first was on the board, a village board, in 1998. Mrs. Heidhorn is a deputy treasurer.
What village?
Of Celeron.
Where's that?
New York.
Go ahead.
On the evening in question, I went to the board meeting.
Were you still on the board?
No, I left in September of '03.
Okay, so you went to a town meeting.
And I had my grandson with me, who was 11 years old, and I was sitting on the end in a chair. He was sitting on my lap because it was full. And I never said a word. I hadn't spoken to Mrs. Heidhorn since I left the village hall.
Is there any reason why you hadn't spoken to her?
It was a lot of animosity against me. They were saying things about me that...
What kind of things?
Oh, just that I didn't do my job when I was there, and...
So you stopped talking, or she stopped talking to you, or you stopped talking to her?
Correct.
Now, you're sitting in the audience?
Yes.
How large a gathering place is this?
A capacity of probably no more than 50 people.
And how many were there that night?
It was a lot.
Was there any reason why they were a lot? Was it a contentious meeting?
It's been very contentious, mainly due to a memorial that the gentleman in the village is trying to erect for his son.
Well, explain that to me. I'm interested.
Well, he wanted to put a memorial in the park for his son who was killed in Fallujah. He had spoken with the board members, and they kind of got an agreement together what they were going to do. Well, then it came to a point where they didn't want to put it where he wanted it then. They wanted it where they wanted it. They didn't want the creed that was on it because... they thought it was offensive. They left it off. But that still wasn't good enough for the mayor. He wanted things his way.
And on whose side were you?
Oh, I'm on Mr. side, the father.
And the board was on the mayor's side?
Correct.
And Ms. Heidhorn is on the board, so she's on the mayor's side?
Definitely. Yes, ma'am.
Now I got it. Okay. So now continue.
Well, we were sitting there, and like I say, I hadn't spoken to Mrs. Heidhorn. It was kind of...
Case number 499 on the calendar in the matter of Heidhorn has been sworn in. You may be seated, folks. Have a seat.
Thank you, Bert.
You're welcome.
Ms. Heidhorn, it is your claim that Ms. Anderson filed some false charges against you, requiring you to seek the assistance of counsel. You want her held responsible for your counsel fees. Those charges were subsequently dismissed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Anderson says that you had a responsibility to act in a more professional manner, and she had every right to complain about your behavior. So I'm going to go to Ms. Anderson and ask her version of what happened on, what's the date?
September 12th, 2005.
What caused you to report Ms. Heidhorn's behavior to the police, starting with how you know each other and where this happened?
I first was on the board, a village board, in 1998. Mrs. Heidhorn is a deputy treasurer.
What village?
Of Celeron.
Where's that?
New York.
Go ahead.
On the evening in question, I went to the board meeting.
Were you still on the board?
No, I left in September of '03.
Okay, so you went to a town meeting.
And I had my grandson with me, who was 11 years old, and I was sitting on the end in a chair. He was sitting on my lap because it was full. And I never said a word. I hadn't spoken to Mrs. Heidhorn since I left the village hall.
Is there any reason why you hadn't spoken to her?
It was a lot of animosity against me. They were saying things about me that...
What kind of things?
Oh, just that I didn't do my job when I was there, and...
So you stopped talking, or she stopped talking to you, or you stopped talking to her?
Correct.
Now you're sitting in the audience?
Yes.
How large a gathering place is this?
A capacity of probably no more than 50 people.
And how many were there that night?
It was a lot.
Was there any reason why they were a lot? Was it a contentious meeting?
It's been very contentious, mainly due to a memorial that the gentleman in the village is trying to erect for his son.
Well, explain that to me. I'm interested.
Well, he wanted to put a memorial in the park for his son who was killed in Fallujah. He had spoken with the board members, and they kind of got an agreement together what they were going to do. Well, then it came to a point where they didn't want to put it where he wanted it then. They wanted it where they wanted it. They didn't want the creed that was on it because they thought it was offensive. They left it off. But that still wasn't good enough for the mayor. He wanted things his way.
And on whose side were you?
Oh, I'm on Mr. side, the father.
And the board was on the mayor's side?
Correct.
And Ms. Heidhorn is on the board, so she's on the mayor's side?
Definitely. Yes, ma'am.
Now I got it. Okay. So now continue.
Well, we were sitting there, and like I said, I hadn't spoken to Mrs. Hydorn. I did not speak to her that evening. I was on the end. Mrs. Piazza, my witness, was on next to me, to my left, and Mrs. Hydorn was sitting next to her. And probably 10 feet from where I was sitting is the board where the village attorney, Mr. Lasker, was sitting. Everybody was just standing up and shouting, and the mayor had no control over anything in the meeting. And Mrs. Piazza stood up and was saying things. And
just a second. Mrs. Piazza, stand up, please. What were you saying? You stood up and you were shouting out.
I was addressing the board, and I was asking them why they promised village taxpaying residents always to give them answers on things and never got back to us on anything. Then as I sat down, Mrs. Hydorn kicked back her chair, stood up, swung over my head like this, pointed at Nedra, and said, "And you're going down." I swung at her, and I said, "And you're nothing but a hypocrite."
When you say you swung at her?
I pointed my finger at her.
And then what happened?
And then Nedra and I both got up to leave to talk to the police. And Miss Hydorn, when we told them what had happened, said, "I did not."
Can I see what you wrote? Who are you?
Ken Lasker, the village attorney for the village.
All right, now I know. You may be seated, sir. I cannot honestly believe that the county of Chautauqua actually filed this case against you.
This was actually the third false arrest they had made.
Against you?
No, the two other ones were against the ex-mayor.
Miss Hydorn, did you say anything to Miss Anderson that day?
No, I did not.
You had no contact with her, according to her. And there was no interaction between the two of you at this meeting?
Not at all.
Not until that point.
Well, that doesn't make sense, quite frankly. It doesn't make sense. I mean, if you had been shouting at each other back and forth, you know, and in a peak, she said, "You're going down." Big deal. That I could understand. But there was nothing. Why in the world would she say that to you?
I really don't know why she said it. I guess she would have to answer that.
Well, maybe she said it to somebody else. Maybe she said it to her.
No, she pointed her finger at me.
Where were you sitting, sir?
Yeah.
Please.
Your Honor, I was sitting, just to answer your question, I was right when you walk in the room, I was to the left, and I was facing out into the audience.
Could you tell me what you observed?
I was in my chair. It was a very contentious meeting. I don't recall that the issue of the memorial was even on the table that night or even came up that night. We do have the board minutes, and there's an attendance sheet of people that signed in.
I'd like to take a look. I'd like to have it.
And I don't believe that issue, I don't think you was not at that meeting. Right, yeah, and that issue, I'm not sure that issue was ever discussed.
It may not have been discussed at that meeting, but there may have been an undercurrent, which...
There are a lot of undercurrents in that village.
There are a lot of people who have much too much time on their hands there.
I agree with that very much.
Being from New York, I agree with that.
It's a small village, and there's a lot of controversy. And I've been the attorney there for 18 years. I'm aware of all of it. So,
Counselor?
Yes.
It's always been my experience that if people have to shove coal into a stove in order to keep warm in the wintertime and bring in ice to stay cool in the summertime, they have a lot less time to worry about what's going on in somebody else's backyard or in somebody else's memorial park.
I'm not disagreeing with that statement at all.
Okay.
There had been other issues and other undercurrents, which I don't have to get into now unless you want me to.
No, I don't want to. Please, I do, fortunately for me, shovel coal into my oven.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You and I both...
Says former friend Nedra Anderson had her falsely arrested for harassment. Nedra claims Charlene purposely scared her grandson.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, during the last 6 months or so before that September meeting, we've had a lot of contentious meetings to the point where many of us, including myself, felt somewhat threatened by certain people there. So we did have police protection at several meetings. At this particular one, we did not have the police, and things were heated and were escalating. So I turned to the clerk and I said, "I think you better call the police," or something along those lines. Several minutes later, I did hear Charlene said, "I did not." And that was the first issue between the two of them. But no, I didn't see her raise her hand, and I certainly never saw her threaten anybody. Thank you.
Once these ridiculous charges were filed and some court actually accepted them, which I find outrageous and a waste of judicial resource, what happened?
I had to go out and hire an attorney because the police officer came and arrested me and said that I was arrested for harassment. And at first I asked, is this Mrs. Piazza? Because she was next to me. No, it was Mrs. Anderson on the other side. And I said, I did nothing. So I had to hire an attorney. He actually went to court, got it dismissed. The judge dismissed the case.
Can I see it, please?
Yep. And the district attorney just kind of laughed a little bit at first, and then they just dismissed us automatically. But I had to be charged $250.
That's what lawyers
for something
do.
that I didn't do, yes.
Miss Anderson, How many times have you complained to the police about someone's conduct?
Most every board meeting when they come because something is going on.
That's outrageous. I mean, I wouldn't want to live in this town.
Our taxpayer dollar pays for Mr. Lasker to defend our village and the village employees. We also have 2 other attorneys in the village. My thing is, if Mr. Lasker can come 3,000 miles here to be here today, why couldn't he have gone 2 miles or 4 miles to defend her in court for nothing?
I want to tell you something. That's an outrageous statement. Outrageous. Do you mind telling me how old you are?
I'm 58 years old.
And how many times have you been arrested?
I have never been. I was devastated.
If I were 58 years old, I would like to be 58 years old. But if I were 58 years old and been charged with a crime, I would want to get the attorney of my choosing who specializes in criminal law. I wouldn't want to say, well, the town attorney can represent me if he happens to, aside from the fact that he need be called as a witness, and if he were called as a witness, then he could not represent her. So you don't determine who she uses as a lawyer, but your conduct in signing a complaint based upon what happened that evening, in my judgment, was so egregious and so over the top and so venal that if she asked me for a lot more than her attorney's fees, she would get it. Just because you have a difference of opinion with somebody, because you and I both know that even if it was true, and I don't even think it was true, that you aren't frightened of this lady. If she told me she was going to go in her house and get a gun and blow my head off, I would say, yeah, go ahead. So you knew that you weren't afraid of her, and you knew that nobody was at risk. You chose the next day, calmly, to make somebody else's life miserable for no reason. And your conduct, madam, is outrageous. Judgment for the plaintiff and the amount requested, which was $250.
That's case number 509 on the calendar in the matter of Ferreras, Burns versus Townsend. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
What's your first name?
Dustin.
Mrs. Ferris, this is your son?
Yes.
And it is your claim sons assaulted your son.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want them to compensate your son for his injuries and his pain and suffering. The defendants, and Ms. Townsend is speaking for both moms, says nothing could be farther from the truth. It was actually your boys that started this altercation. She witnessed it, and despite the fact that you claim that she left your son bleeding and didn't go to assist him, she says that it was actually your boys who precipitated this argument. And not only was she there, but she took the boys later to some sort of a Halloween dance, and despite his injuries, your son was there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, since you weren't there, Miss Ferris, I'm going to ask the boys to stand up and the moms to sit down for a moment. Who's speaking?
Me, ma'am.
Good. How old are you, Dustin?
18.
How do you know these boys?
I don't know them personally, but my brother does.
You know them.
Somewhat.
What's your name?
Dakota Burns.
This happened at a place that I will call the Ball Flats. Is that what you call it?
Yes, ma'am.
What time had you gotten to the Ball Flats on October 31st? Look at me. What time had you gotten to the Ball Flats on October 31st?
Probably about 6
p.m. Who were you there with?
It was me, Dustin, Justin.
Who's Justin?
A friend of mine.
Dustin, Justin, Dakota. Who else?
Victor and Derek.
You got there at 6 o'clock. Had you had dinner?
No.
What time was dinner?
We didn't have anything planned.
Well, weren't you going home to eat?
We were going to the dance.
Oh. How did you get to the park?
Oh, we were just riding our bikes around.
Were you taking your bikes to the dance?
We
Look
rode
at me. I have all the questions. You better have answers that make sense, starting from point A to point B. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I ask the questions that maybe your mother doesn't ask. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
You, Dustin, Justin, Victor, and Derek. Who else?
There was like another kid there. I don't know. It was one of their friends.
One of whose friends?
I think Justin's.
Who was there when you got to the park?
It was just us hanging out.
What happened?
They showed up in a van.
Who showed up in a van?
Dustin.
Who's Dustin? That's you.
Tom, his mom.
Who's Tom?
I am.
That's you, Tom. Dustin and Tom showed up in a van being driven by?
His mom.
Keep going.
So I guess we got into a little argument.
What did you get into an argument about? Their mother drove them there because one of them had left a shirt at the flats, right?
A jacket.
Jacket. Who left the jacket at the flats?
Your Honor.
Dakota, What were you and your friends arguing with them about?
It was just me that started arguing.
What were you arguing about?
Because we just didn't like each other, and they told us to meet them at the ball flats on South Shenango Street earlier that day.
You didn't. Nobody met anybody else. Right now, they're there with their mother to get a jacket. Where was your jacket?
At the scout house where scouts go.
How far is that from where they were?
Not far. Within feet.
What happened after you got your jacket?
Dustin Burns and Dakota Burns both jumped me from behind, and I tried to...
Don't speak.
I tried to defend myself, and my glasses got knocked off my face, and we were all looking for them. Thomas got out of the van to grab Dakota off of me. That's when the fight really ended. We were looking for my glasses for a while when their friends came over and got in my face. So I said, the heck with my glasses, and left the ball flats without them.
And got into the van with your mom?
Yeah. Yes.
Now you can stand up next to your sons. Now, that's not the story your sons told you, correct?
Right.
Have you ever had any dealings with Miss Townsend?
No.
You think she's psychotic?
I can't understand why someone could witness something like that and then just leave.
I can't understand why you would believe that Miss Townsend would bring her 2 sons over to the park where 6 young men were hanging around on their bicycles and let her sons out of the van in order to go and start a fight with these 6 young men, and you think that your sons are telling you the truth when they said they started the fight. It doesn't make sense, does it? Does it make sense to you?
I believe my sons.
Well, you better start believing differently, because it doesn't make sense. How many children have you raised?
2.
I've raised more. Sons. When things don't make sense, they're usually not true. How many children do you have, Miss Townsend?
2. Thomas is...
Stand up.
Thomas is my son, and I have a daughter.
Oh, your daughter, according to your answer, was in the car?
Yes. And my son's girlfriend was in the car, too, and she was going to the dance with my son.
Do you understand? 6 of them were hanging around looking for no good. 1 person got out of the car to get his jacket. You think it makes sense to think that when 1 person gets out of the car, he's going to start up with 6 boys?
Your Honor, can I say something?
Yes.
They're the ones that told me to meet them at the ball flats many times. They came by the house at their house with their bike, Dustin Burns did, and said, aren't you going to meet us at the ball flats?
And I was out on the porch when he did come down the house because I was talking to his older brother because they were waiting for their mother to come with the rest of the kids to go trick-or-treating.
I have a couple of questions for you. When Dustin got back into the van, did he have his glasses?
No, he did not.
Did he have his jacket?
Yes, he did.
Did you ever get your glasses back?
We went down after the dance around 10 with a flashlight, me and Thomas, and saw them on the bench in many pieces.
Okay. Was Dustin here at the dance that night?
Yes, he was. So was Dakota.
Well, I know Dakota was. Dakota alleged wasn't hurt. But Dustin was at the dance. What were you doing at the dance?
Hanging out with friends.
You went to the dance directly from the flats?
No, ma'am.
Where did you go first?
I went to Mimi's to clean up my face.
Who's Mimi?
Mimi did a pieced up lady.
So you went to Mimi's to clean up?
In the bathroom.
After, according to you, what you told your mother later, after you were attacked by these 2 boys, you didn't go home?
No.
Didn't go to the police?
No.
You went to the dance?
Yes, ma'am.
Just hung out. And when did you go home? About what time?
10 o'clock, ma'am.
And did you see your mother?
Yes.
She asked you what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you tell her?
I got into a bike accident.
You lied to your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Told you the same story.
Thomas Townsend and 17-year-old Dustin Sturdivant. The defendants claim the plaintiff and his brother started it.
When you lied to your mother, did you lie to your mother with the same look as you just told me that he attacked you?
No, ma'am.
Was it easy to lie to your mother?
No, ma'am.
Did you go to bed still telling your mother that you got into a bicycle accident?
I told her the very next day, ma'am.
That's not my question. My question to you is, did you go to bed that night still lying to your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened the next day?
I went to the hospital the night before. And next day
Just a second. When you went to the hospital that night, your mother took you to the hospital. She was worried about you. You went to the emergency room?
Yes, ma'am.
You were interviewed by a doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
Doctor asked you what happened?
Yeah, yes.
Told the doctor you were in a bicycle accident?
Yes.
So you lied to the doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
Who else went to the hospital with you?
My mom and my mom's friend, Harry.
Did you tell Harry that you fell off a bicycle?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's see. You told Harry, you told your mother, you told the doctor in the hospital. You lied to all of those people.
Yes, ma'am.
And you wanted them to believe you.
Yes, ma'am.
And you told the doctor you were in a bicycle accident, And the doctor was going to have to treat you for your injuries. It was really important that you tell the doctor the truth, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't. You lied to the doctor. What prompted you to tell your mother the story the next day?
I told my mom that my brother had gotten into a fight, which he didn't want to. But
Just a second. Did you go to the dance that night?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you come home with your brother that night?
Yes, ma'am.
When your mother asked you what happened, what did you tell her?
He had no bike accident.
So you lied to your mother. I want you to describe to me how you described to your mother the bicycle accident.
That he was going off a jump, flipped forward, and
No. Slowly. Your mom said, well, tell me what happened. And you said...
We were riding around, and he went to go off a jump, and he flipped forward and hit his face off the handlebars.
And did you tell your mother who you were with?
Yeah, same people I told you that were at the ball flats.
So you told me with all these people, and you were doing like wheelies with the bicycle?
Yeah.
Look at all the facts they got. Miss Ferris flipped over the front handlebars, hit his face against the ground, told you the same story, told the doctor the same story, told Harry the same story, both of them. You want me to believe them today? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And the fact that this mother was there with her young daughter in the car, put your hand down, with her son's girlfriend, in the car, just going back to get his jacket. He got out alone. Put your hand down. You think I'm going to believe you now? No way. How should somebody know when you're telling the truth and when you're lying? I mean, do you put up a sign? Is there a flashing light? Stay out of trouble. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Versus Lawrence. Step forward.
Musician Ty G. Monroe is suing bar patron Dion Lawrence for throwing a bottle at him, cutting his eye.
Mr. Monroe, it is your claim that Miss Lawrence assaulted you at a bar. Miss Lawrence has a rather interesting defense to that. I'm going to let her tell me herself because Officer Byrd would not believe it if I said it myself. When did this happen, Mr. Monroe?
The 26th of November. It was at the Blue Martini. It's a club in the neighborhood where I was performing.
You're a musician?
Yeah, I'm an entertainer.
Tell me what happened.
Well, I did my show, and a fight broke out. I left the stage. I made it over to the bar where my fiance was at, and next thing I know, I felt something hit me in my eye.
What was it that hit you? You don't know?
It was a bottle.
Miss Lawrence?
Yes, Your Honor.
I've read your answer, and you acknowledge in your answer that you threw that bottle.
Yes, Your Honor.
Why don't you tell me why?
At the time, Your Honor, I was there with my boyfriend to have a good time. Somehow, altercation broke out. Then I felt something on my bottom. Somebody actually grabbed at my butt, and I just reached for the bottle and threw it. And somehow he got in the way, I guess.
Your defense is that you threw the bottle, but you weren't aiming at him.
No, I wasn't aiming
That's your
directly at
defense?
him. Yes.
That's not a defense! I mean, are you serious with that defense?
Yes, I wasn't intentionally aiming at him to hit him with a bottle. I just
You were
threw it.
negligent. What kind of a way is that to react, to pick up a bottle and to throw it in a crowded room? Ridiculous. All right, this case, I'm not going to go any further with this because I can't deal with this kind of stupidity. Can I please see your medical bills?
Sure. I also have a police report.
Can you tell me, please, Mr. Monroe, what kind of injury you sustained?
The bottle hit me in my eye. I had to get 7 stitches. They did a CAT scan, and I dripped blood over my new outfit that I performed.
Well, dripping blood over your new outfit is not an issue. Almost going blind is an issue.
Right.
When you discussed this matter with the defendant, which I assume you did she acknowledge that she was responsible for minimally your medical bills and expenses?
Yes, she did. My fiance and I were outside.
What did she say?
Well, we were outside waiting on the ambulance, and at this time, I didn't know who hit me. Her and my uncle, this is my uncle here, he's her boyfriend. They came up to me, and she said, "I'm sorry for hitting you with the bottle." I said, "Oh, you hit me?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'm on my way to the hospital now." She said, "Okay, I'll take care of any, whatever bills you got coming up." I said, "I know."
Well, when you gave her the bills, what did she say?
She said she's not paying my bills.
Why would you not pay his bills?
I just think I wasn't responsible for paying his bills. I mean, he got in the way. It wasn't intentionally done. And it was a bit of harassing to me.
He wasn't harassing you.
I just don't believe I should have.
Oh, God. You're her boyfriend?
Yes, Your Honor.
You don't want to tell that to me, too, do you?
Actually, no, Your Honor.
Smart. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. Parties have been sworn in.
According to the complaint that I read, you purchased your first home. Where was the home?
In Lithia Springs, Georgia.
How large a home was it? Or is it? Because you're in the home now.
3-bedroom, about 2,000 square feet.
And you saved up to buy this house?
Had saved up to buy this house.
Did it come furnished?
No.
Tell me what happened.
Judge Judy, on December 22nd, 2004, I had just closed on my house that morning, and later that afternoon, I went by my mom's, and she said, let's go to the store, and I said, good. Then we can come back by my house, brand new house, and I can get some blinds while we're there. So we proceeded to the store, we got the blinds, we came back to the house, and in approaching my house, we saw a white truck in the yard. My mom stated, Jennifer, is someone in your house? And I said, it may be a squatter, and we laughed, ironically. So we got out, me in excitement jumped out first and ran to my front door with my key that the Lord had gave me at closing. And I opened the door, and as soon as I cut on the light, I saw a shadow, a figure, jump up. And from where I came into the first room, there's like...
What is the first room?
First room is like a sitting room. And at that point...
Jump up from the floor?
From the floor. And the shirt, I could see the shirt was falling down, and I could see their white midriff, and I could see they were pulling up their pants. And I kind of stood back, again, because I didn't know how many was in the house, because this was a big truck in my yard. So I asked, who is this in my house? And the shadow hollered back as he was actually in the process of actually running to the next room. I'm with the builder. I was with the builder earlier. My mom asked, Jennifer, is someone in there? I said, yes, somebody's in here, and they're having sex. And then my mom, in shock and disbelief, she came on up behind me, and she actually, we stood there.
Tell me what you saw.
When she came up behind me, I continued with her to walk into the next room, which is the living room. And at that point of turning on that light, I saw a white female, blonde hair. She was getting up. She was in the process of was fixing on her clothes, but the actual shirt was on backwards. She, still grabbing her stuff. At this point, I'm looking around and I'm still thinking, could someone still be in here? And I'm crying and boohooing. And I see tissue paper everywhere, all over the carpet. And I also see a cell phone. And mind you, as I'm standing there crying in disbelief, she's picking this stuff up and trying to get out of there. My mom asked, what are y'all doing in this house? And she didn't say anything. She just shook her head, and she was turning red. And she continued to go on into the next room, which I cut on the light in there was my actual kitchen and breakfast nook area. I actually saw coins on my island, and I saw coins on the floor. And the actual kitchen drawer that's near the stove was pulled out. So she pushes the drawer back in, and then she just bolts from the kitchen out into the laundry area and out the garage entry door. At this point, this female goes to the passenger side of the truck, jumps in, and at that point, I'm not sure where the actual guy that was in my house comes from, but he actually comes to the driver's side, and he's fumbling to get in the car, and he says a curse word, and she finally lets him in. He backs up real fast. Mind you, my mom is still standing.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He's Kenneth Soros.
He's the guy that you saw that was in your house. He acknowledges that he was in your house. He has a story to tell me. And what you want in this lawsuit is damages for being in your house.
Yes.
The builder, the cleaner, replaced the carpet. You want money for changing the locks. And while all of that was being done by the builder, you had to stay for an additional month in your old apartment, so you want a month's rent.
That's right.
And how much?
$1,000.
All right, Mr. Soros. Officer Petrie Hawkins-Bird and I are prepared for you to tell us your version of these events.
Okay, number one, she never seen me with my clothes off.
Don't tell me what she saw.
Okay.
You tell me.
Okay,
tell me, and you tell Officer Bird.
Okay.
What you wrote in your answer as your version of these events.
All right, I never was undressed in her home. I come to the subdivision to look for work. And I talked to the electrician about doing some telephone work in the other homes. As I was leaving the subdivision, this lady was walking down the street, running. I don't know who she was, the lady in her house.
Your Honor, listen to me. He didn't interrupt you. I don't want you to say a word. Do you understand?
Yes.
And she was, her clothes were torn. She was distraught. She was crying. I stopped. I said, are you okay?
Describe this lady to me.
She was blonde-haired, probably 4 years old. I don't know. I've never seen her before. I've never seen her since. I don't know her name.
Okay, so this
Maybe
blonde lady was coming down the street distraught with torn clothes.
Yes. And she had said she'd been in a fight with her boyfriend. And she said, would I take her to a hotel? I said, I certainly will. I said, are you okay? She said, yes, I'm okay. She said, before I go, you go back to this house and get my stuff. I said, sure. So we pulled back in the driveway, and we went in the house. There's an unspoken rule. I contracted in homes for 20 years, and if the home has a private residence sign, which means someone's closed on the house, they put up a sign that says private residence, and they also change the locks because all the trades have keys to those houses. That's how we get in and do our work. I mean, the carpenter has a key, the painter has a key, the roofer, everybody has a key. So the house was wide open.
To me. Carpenter and the roofer aren't here.
Yeah, but anyway.
They weren't in the house.
So we went in the house, her house, I guess she said she closed on that day. And as we entered the house, this lady's clothes were torn, and there was stuff all over the floor. Her purse was just spread. Her change, her cell phone, her makeup, everything was all over the floor. and I was helping her pick it up when she came to the door, and she came bursting in, yelling and cussing, of course, because she said it was her house. I didn't know who she was. I thought it might have been the people that the lady I was with had to fight. And I did have a black sweatshirt on and an orange shirt, and I gave her my black sweatshirt. I was taking it off. I had it off in my hand, actually, when she came in. I said, put on this shirt, you know, just, I don't know who that is, just put on the shirt. I was helping her get her stuff out of the floor. She came in yelling and cursing, and so I said, I'm just out of here, because I didn't know who these people were. I mean, it was just her word against mine. She bought the house. I didn't know who she was.
You got the story so far?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody he never saw before, never saw again, came running down the street, blonde lady, torn clothes. He went into this house to sort of help her get her stuff together.
Right.
And also, for some reason, took off his sweatshirt
Right, to cover her up.
to cover her up. And then this lady came in, and he didn't know whether she was the boyfriend of the lady who had assaulted her. He said he's not sure whether she was the person who assaulted her or not, even though he said that it was the boyfriend. She had had a fight with a boyfriend. And so instead of confronting her, he ran out the back door. Got it? Got it so far. That is right.
Well, I tried to
Just a minute.
confront her.
That is right.
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
For coming here.
Contractor Kenneth Sorrows illegally entered her home. Jennifer claims she walked in on him having sex.
Now, you were there looking for work. Had you worked in that subdivision?
No.
So how did you know about all these unwritten rules that you can go into a
Well,
house
I've
as long
worked
as
in every subdivision in the county. I'm born and raised in Douglas County, and every
But you
subdivision.
didn't work in this
there.
subdivision.
Not yet.
All right. So you were looking for work there.
Exactly.
Now, when you found this stranger, according to you, this lady who you didn't know, you thought was possibly a trespasser or somebody who had assaulted this blonde lady, right?
I don't know who it was.
You didn't know who
She
it
said
was,
her
but
boyfriend, her and
listen
her
to me.
boyfriend had gotten in a fight.
Listen to me. Well, she certainly is not the boyfriend.
I don't know if she was his wife or husband. Or, I didn't know who
Right.
it
So
was.
you didn't know who it
I know
was,
the girl.
but you weren't waiting around and you thought she may have been a trespasser.
No, I didn't.
Did you report it to anybody?
I talked to the police that night. She called the police
Oh,
and
no,
they
no.
called me.
Before she called the police on you, did you go to the police?
Didn't have time.
What were you busy with?
I just took the lady to the hotel, left her, and the police called me immediately.
Well, what'd you do with the lady's cell phone?
I didn't have her cell phone. I had a cell phone on my own. I didn't have her cell phone.
So you had your own cell phone? Speak.
Yes.
Well, then you had time while you were in the white truck to call the police.
I didn't see any need in calling the police. I left.
That a good story?
That's funny. I thought he was going to make something up.
Good. Can I have a police report? Mr. Sorrows, that is the lamest story I ever heard. I've been here a long time. That ranks, well, not the lamest story I've ever heard, but it ranks right up there, sir.
And Judge Judy, can I say something?
What?
Because he said if there's a written rule, there's a private residence sign, and they don't go in. There's a sold sign on there, so he didn't apply for that house.
This
so,
is it.
and I
Miss
have
Watts.
photos.
Miss Watts. I didn't have to see anything. That story has so many holes. Were you charged with criminal trespass, sir?
I was charged with nothing. I talked to the officer that night. He had no forced entry, no damage to the house. He said if I agreed to have the carpet cleaned, it would go no further. It says that in the police report.
Judge Judy, may I ask?
And then 3 days later, I talked to the police chief, and she said that she's up here trying to take a warrant for you. He said, I can't take a warrant for you, Mr. Sorrows, because you didn't do anything wrong.
Of course you did.
There wasn't a warrant taken for my arrest.
Led, I want to tell you something. If you lived in my county, there would have been a warrant issued for your arrest. If you had lived in my county, I would have charged you with trespass, Mr. Sorrows. What's the name of the police chief in Douglasville?
Joe.
Do you know the name of the police chief in that county? Before he just told you, did you know the name of the police chief?
No.
Nah, but you did. They don't keep me in this job, Mr. Sorrows, because I'm young and lithe and beautiful. They keep me in this job because I'm smart. Joe and I aren't friends. You would have paid for more than the carpet. And for coming here and fabricating that story and insulting my intelligence by trying. I'm speaking. When I'm speaking, you don't. By insulting my intelligence and coming here and giving me that cock and bull story, I'm awarding her damages pretty consistent with what she wants. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Now, this is case number 574 on the calendar in the matter of Troth versus McMillan. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, folks. Have a seat.
Mr. Troth, this is your former girlfriend, and you claim she owes you a whole bunch of money for a variety of very small items. A ring, some clothes check that you claim she cashed without your permission. Miss Millen says she doesn't owe you a thing. When were you and Miss Millen involved in a relationship?
The 1st of September of 2004, ma'am.
Until when?
Probably July 9th of 2005.
Okay. Were you living together?
Yes, ma'am.
In whose house?
Evelyn's and her ex-husband's.
And her ex-husband? You all lived together, the three of you?
Shh. For a short spell, yes.
And then he left?
Yeah, she forced him to move out of the house.
Well, tell me how that came about. I'm sort of curious.
Okay, when I first met her, she was married. That was one of my first mistakes. We were starting to see each other. Her husband worked during the graveyard shift, and I worked during the days. When he went to work, I'd be sleeping over at the house, and when he got off work, I'd be going to work. So she was getting sort of...
Just a second, did he know you were there?
Not for the first month or so.
Why would you do such a ridiculous thing, sir?
Just being stupid, not using my common sense.
And you weren't living anyplace else?
No.
Well, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
You
got to make a movie of that. Just when you think you hear everything, gives a whole new definition to optimum utilization of space. It's true.
I like that. I like
You
that.
like
That phrase.
Listen to me. This case is already getting to me. What do you think she owes you for, sir? Did you pay her rent the first couple of months you were... Listen to me.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, sorry.
Did you pay her rent the first few months you were living there?
No.
You started to say sure, and then you thought better of it.
Well, sure, as in, yeah, I did chores. I helped her paint her house. I helped maintenance the house.
You mean the husband never knew you were painting the house? How do you think the house got painted?
Well...
So you were living there the first few months when the husband was still living there and you weren't paying any rent?
Right.
Where had you been living before?
At the motel rooms. Me and her.
No. She was living at home with her husband. She may come to visit you in a motel, but that's where you were living. Right. She had a house. You were living in a motel. And how much were you paying at the motels?
$50 a night.
That's pretty expensive. Were you new to the area?
No.
There's more of a story here than even I want to hear. All right. Now I'd like you to tell me, Mr. Trupp, what you think this lady owes you, this bargain over here who had two people living in her house at the same time. One husband and one boyfriend.
Okay, she cashed a paycheck of mine was $295. I told her to pick it up. I didn't tell her to forge my name on it and cash it.
Where were you when you told her to
I was
pick it up?
incarcerated.
For what?
For failure to pay fines.
What kind of fines?
I don't even remember. I got picked up on the 28th of February of 2004. I was in there for 32 days.
Okay, and then you came out in February.
Right.
When did you find out she'd cashed your paycheck?
I think it was probably March 3rd or the 4th.
All right, pay careful attention to me, Mr. Trupp. You told me before you lived with her from the 1st of September 2004 until the 9th of July 2005. She cashed your paycheck in February. You found out in March.
Right.
You came out of jail and you went back to live with her?
Yes, in a motel room.
Listen to me. You went back to live with her?
Yeah.
And you lived with her March, April, May, and June?
Yes.
Yes. Forget about the paycheck. What's next?
Okay. Next, the engagement ring.
Engagement ring?
Yeah.
Tell me about the engagement ring.
Evelyn and I, we decided to get married, and
she was still married.
No, she got divorced in May sometime. I'm not sure exactly.
May of 2005.
Correct.
And when did you give her this engagement ring?
On June 28th of 2005.
And where did you buy it?
I bought it over at the pawn shop, the pawnbroker.
What did it look like?
It had a pretty nice sized center ring with little diamonds going up the side of it.
What'd you do with the ring?
I sold it to a pawn shop, Your Honor.
Why?
At that time, to my home and other things that I could not pay for.
Were you living in your house?
Yes.
You said you were living in a motel.
The only time that I lived in a motel was at the very end of our relationship. I lived there for a week. He probably lived there a few days. I moved back into my home.
So you don't have the ring anymore?
No.
How much did you pay for the ring?
$261.45.
$261.45. Consider it your first 2 months' rent.
All right.
Good. What's next?
All right. The damaged clothes that she kept of mine, and she burned them, she said.
What clothes did she take of yours?
Well, I don't know. I asked her. She took about 20 pairs of pants, a bunch of shirts, shoes.
You own 20 pairs of pants?
Yeah.
Where did you get them from?
From a store.
Show me the bills. Shh. Show me the bills for 20 pairs of pants.
I don't have the bills.
Who are you?
I'm his mother.
You want to acknowledge that? I wouldn't acknowledge that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
May I speak, Your Honor?
Does it have anything to...
His ex-girlfriend, Evelyn McMillan, owes for destroying his property and forging his paycheck.
Your Honor.
What?
May I testify, please?
Sure. Your last name is?
Wanda Trofe.
Go ahead.
Yes. Over the time that he was incarcerated, she came over to our apartment, and she wanted to pick up his clothes because she wanted to wash them, fold them up, and have them ready for him when he came out.
And what did you give her?
My husband actually took the laundry basket out and gave it to her. And they were not used clothes, Your Honor. They were new ones.
Who bought them?
He did. He buys his own clothes.
Thank you. What'd you do with the clothes?
Your Honor, the only thing that Jason left...
What did you do with... Listen to me. You went over to his mother's house, I believe her, that you got the
Yes.
laundry basket. That was very nice of you.
Yes, I did.
Did you wash his laundry?
Yes, I did.
And fold it?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do with it?
I kept it at the house for him. He had his laundry, all of his clothing, the whole time that we were together.
Well, on what date did you go and pick up his laundry? What date was it that she came to pick up the laundry?
It was during the weekdays, Your Honor.
What month?
It was, I have to think back. I think May, June.
He lived with her until July. So if she did anything to his clothes, he forgave her. They lived together. When did you get out of jail?
December 1st.
What else?
What else? That's it.
Good. Listen, you have children?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
How many children do you have?
I have 4 boys, Your Honor.
How old are they?
My youngest is 17. I have a 19-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 22-year-old.
And where do they live?
They're all in the military, Your Honor.
Great.
That's
Sounds
a
like
lie.
a perfect place. What?
That's a lie, Your Honor.
Shh.
May I speak, Your Honor?
About what?
About what she just said.
You mean where her children are?
No.
You mean,
Yes.
does it have
Yes,
anything
I
to
would.
do with
Yes.
her children?
Yes, I do.
Then I'm not interested.
It's about her
Then-
children, Your Honor.
Then listen to me. Button it. I said I'm not interested. I just
She
want to
did
make.
not
I said,
tell the
did you
truth,
hear what
Your
I said?
Honor. Yes,
did
I
you
did
hear what
hear
I
you.
said? Then don't
I
speak.
don't
Put her
mean to be
outside.
dis-
Put her out. My only interest in her children was to make sure that she didn't have any young children living
She
with
lied.
her. Listen, Miss Troff, get used to the fact your son's no beauty and he picked no bargain. They deserve each other. Your case is dismissed.
Yeah, that's case number 590 on the calendar, the matter of Thomas versus Stein. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks have a...
Your action is really one that Miss Stein wrongfully changed the locks and evicted you from an apartment that you were sharing with your former girlfriend.
Correct.
Miss Stein says that you were not an authorized tenant in that apartment, that your former girlfriend, is she here?
She's right here.
That would be you, had asked her to help get you out of the apartment, that she had no knowledge of your being in the apartment, that you weren't supposed to be in the apartment. She did, in fact, change the locks and put out your things because you refused to leave. And in addition, she is counterclaiming because she says that since the time you left, you have vandalized the apartments that she owns. Let me get a little background. Miss Stein, tell me about the apartment that Mr. Thomas was living in with his girlfriend.
I never knew that he was living there to begin with. I rented to Janelle Howard. She was supposed to be the only one living there, and I never went to the property.
She is an employee of yours?
Yes.
What kind of business do you have?
Telemarketing.
How long has she been employed by you?
I think 2.5, maybe 3 years. I don't remember, but probably that long. But she's only been living there a year.
Living in the apartment that you own. And how many apartments are in this unit?
It's just 2.
Her rent?
$700.
Does she have a lease?
She has a lease.
Do you have a copy of that lease?
Yes,
Can I
I
see
do.
it, please? Okay, well, your lease specifically states that Miss Janelle Howard was to be the only tenant, and guests staying over 15 days without the written consent of the owner, that's you, will be a breach of the lease. So you understand that you had no right to be in that apartment, Mr. Thomas.
Your Honor, the date that was signed was actually about the 1st of January of this year. What's the date on the lease?
1/10/05.
No, that was signed around the 10th of January of this year. And
No.
Janelle can attest to that.
No.
Just a second. Step up. Miss Howard, when did you sign this lease?
I signed that lease in January
Of what year?
of this year.
Well, then, the two of you falsified this. Is that right?
I didn't falsify it. She had a lease agreement with me.
Just a second. Miss Stein, listen to me very carefully. This is your witness. Your witness says that this lease was signed this year, 2006, and not 2005. I believe her. So don't compound your position with another lie to me. It will not go well for you. Do you understand?
I understand.
Now, did you have a lease with her that covered 2005?
A verbal agreement.
All right. So there was only a verbal agreement. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Okay. Very bad form to submit a piece of evidence that you know is false. Very bad form. What kind of verbal agreement did you have, allegedly, with Miss Howard?
That she could be the only one to live on my property, as I had to evict her cousin and her friends who vandalized.
Was that your agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were not to have anybody else living there?
Correct.
Did you tell that to Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
See, she's the one I believe.
Mm-hmm.
When did you move in?
The day she moved in on January 7th, 2005.
When did you tell Mr. Thomas that you were supposed to be the only tenant?
That same day.
Is that right?
Yes.
When did she put you out?
She put me out on February the 16th of 2006. But I got evidence here that she accepted me as a tenant, okay, and she raised her rent from $700 to $950 a month. Check stubs reflecting that right here. And that was 19th of 2005.
Just a second. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you told Miss Stein that Mr. Thomas was living there?
Eventually, yes.
When?
Like in December.
See, Miss Stein? Eventually we'd get to the truth. You want to know why? Because even though Ms. Howard may be scared to death of Mr. Thomas, I think she's more frightened of me. So what did you do when she told you that Mr. Thomas was living there? You raised her rent.
Well,
You're in serious trouble as it is with me. So let's make sure that you tell me the truth.
I'm going to tell you the truth.
Well, then get to it. That's either a yes or a no. She told you that he was living there. Did you raise her rent?
I raised her rent.
Not because of that.
Hey, I'm not speaking to you.
Sorry.
Right. Okay, so you are right. So you lived there for a year without permission. But then in December, because she raised your rent, you had permission to live there.
Correct.
Because she allowed her to modify the oral lease to include the fact that she had somebody else living there, and she was charging her the extra $250 rent because, according to you, the money was coming right out of her paycheck, correct?
Right.
Now, she put you out when, sir?
She put me out on February 16th of 2006.
When did she first give you notice that she wanted you to leave?
Well, she has a problem talking for herself, so she asked her boss to call, and Shoshana called me on the 27th of January.
Who's she? You mean Janelle had a problem talking herself?
She has a problem talking to her boss. She's intimidated by her.
Not by you?
No. She's not intimidated at all by me. Okay. She's intimidated by her boss.
Not necessarily, sir, because she just stood up and testified in direct opposition to what her boss's position was.
That's because she knows the penalties for perjury.
You think you know her so well, right? You think you know her so well?
I lived with her for 5 years. I think I know her well.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Claims ex-landlord Shoshana Stein illegally evicted him and allowed his property to sit outside in the rain. Shoshana is countersuing, claiming Stephen vandalized her property.
Okay. Miss Howard.
Yes.
Did there come a time that you wanted Mr. Thomas out of the apartment?
Yes.
When was that?
The dates that he said, like a couple months before that, I had discussed with him that I wanted to go our separate ways, that I just wanted to take a break. And
did you tell him why?
Because I was tired of the way we were treating each other. I couldn't handle it anymore. And so I asked him, we just need to take a break. And he just, it went at one ear out the other, I guess.
What did he
say? He didn't really say much. It like blew over. The next day, it was like nothing happened. And I felt that he ignored what I wanted. And so I told my boss about it and asked
What did you tell her?
I told her what I had told him and that he wasn't doing anything. He was acting as if I didn't say anything to him, that there was no problem. And maybe if she had said something to him, he would listen to her.
You've been living with Mr. Thomas for 5 years. Has Mr. Thomas been employed during that time?
Yes.
So he helped support the household?
Always.
What was wrong? Was he abusive to you?
No.
You abusive to him?
No.
Just weren't happy?
Yeah.
Okay. So you asked Miss Stein if she could help you?
Yes.
What did you do, Miss Stein?
She would come to the office crying every day, telling me how miserable she was. She couldn't work. She was upset with him. He was abusing her mentally. She would tell me she's terrified of him. She asked me if I would please step in and ask him to leave, stating that he wasn't supposed to live there. I did it as a favor to her and said, okay, I'll call him. And I was very nice to him. I told him that he wasn't supposed to be there. She didn't want it to come from her. She wanted it to come from me, as though I wanted him to leave. So I said, fine, I'll do it. And that was it. And a week went by. He didn't leave. I talked to Janelle, asked her what she wanted me to do. She said she wanted him out. And I said, well, if you want him out, you got to talk to Gary. I can't handle the stress.
Who's Gary?
Gary takes care of all the things that I can't because I've had 8 operations.
He works for you?
He does all sorts of stuff. He's a handyman. He's an engineer. He does lots of stuff.
Got it.
So he came in and said that he would take care of the property and he would go in and change the locks. And I said, what do you want to do? He's your boyfriend. It's up to you. He has no lease agreement with me. Put his stuff out then. So they did so. He was supposed to come and pick it up. They covered it all up. And he never picked it up. And he changed the locks and he broke in.
Miss Stein, you know what your problem is?
Probably a big one.
Yeah, your problem is a big one. Because up until December of 2005, prior to your accepting him as a tenant, and she was...
But I never accepted him.
Oh, yes. You raised her rent $250 a month because he was living there. And once you raised her rent because he was living there, you accepted him as a tenant.
It was only 2 months.
Doesn't make any difference. Don't you understand, Miss Stein? Don't you understand?
Okay.
Once you said, I now know he's here, officially, and because he's here, I am raising your rent, You created a tenancy. And if there was a tenancy created, you can't just change the locks and put his stuff out. If he doesn't want to leave and he's a tenant, you have to go in and have him evicted. Eviction is not changing the locks and putting his stuff outside and covering him with a tarp. You can't do that. Sit down, Janelle. This gentleman wants to say something to me, and I am dying to hear him. Your last name is?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was listening to her.
Your last name is?
Gladstone.
Yes, sir.
Many of these things aren't exactly the way they've been said to be, but...
Listen to me, sir. That's my job.
Okay.
If you have testimony that you feel is relevant, I'll hear you. Whether they are not is what they seem to be, that's for me to determine. I do know this. I do know that Ms. Stein came in with a forged document. I do know that she created a tenancy with Mr. Thomas by increasing the rent consistent with his being on the property. And I do know that in violation of every law in every jurisdiction in this country, she changed the locks during the course of his tenancy and put him out on the street without the assistance of the court system.
That's not true.
That's what she told me. So if you're calling her a liar, I'm more prepared to hear you, Mr. Gladstone.
I'm telling you what the truth is. Anyway, Janelle asked me if I would change the locks, that she wanted Stephen to go.
You have no right to do that. If Janelle asked you...
It's her apartment?
Listen to me. No, sir. It's not her apartment. You're not hearing. You don't have your listening ears on, Mr. Gladstone.
Anyone can have the locks.
Mr. Gladstone, do me a favor. I'm going to sign you up for the LSATs. You go take your law school examination boards. Then you go to law school for 3 years. Then you practice for 35. Then you tell me what the law is. Sit down. Sit down. I've had enough. Sit. Sit. Sit.
This is the one who removed Stephen's stuff.
Now you can put him outside.
All right. Nothing was
now
on her
you can
order.
put him out.
Nothing was
now
on her
you can
order.
put him out.
Good try.
Did a good job.
Okay.
Where did you go when you were put out, Mr. Thomas?
I'm living my truck right now.
Why are you living in your truck?
Because I don't have the money to put down.
Why didn't you have the money if you were constantly employed?
They put a restraining order on me to try and evict me. And my tools have been caught up in eviction for 15 days. And I punched through the window and I had 27 stitches in my arm.
Oh, that's another story, Mr. Thomas.
Right.
Now, when did you punch through the window, sir?
When I came home on the 16th, and I found on the 15th, Janelle was talking to me, and she was telling me that she was not going to let them in to do this, okay? She had downloaded information on the internet that this was illegal what they were doing. All three of them knew it. All three of them went ahead and did it.
I've already explained that to Ms. Stein.
No, right.
She had no right to change the locks and put your stuff out.
Right.
She's going to try to explain that to Mr. Gladstone when he gets clear-headed.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, that doesn't excuse you from vandalizing the property.
It doesn't excuse it. It was something that was uncontrollable. When I came home, after she was telling me that she's not going to let them do this, I feel safe going to work, that my belongings are going to be okay. And I get home, and everything is out in the pouring rain, uncovered, and my truck has been towed away, and I lost control. And I punched through the window, and it was that was a mistake.
Mr. Thomas, you've been living with Miss Howard for 5 years, you said?
Right.
Does Miss Howard take any medication?
No.
Is she under any kind of doctor's care?
No, but I think she should be, and she asked. She asked.
Quiet.
She's seriously stressed out from her job, and she asked Shoshana to go to the doctor, and Shoshana denied her to go to the doctor.
That is a lie.
Shh. You think that any part of Miss Howard's stress is owing to the relationship that you had with her?
I would say yes, positively, but I would say that the stress started when she went to work for her, because this is a tug of war. Anything that she does, her job is in jeopardy, and her place to live is in jeopardy, and she's a control freak. So Janelle is scared to death, intimidated.
Mr. Thomas, do you take medication?
No.
Are you under any sort of doctor's regular care?
No.
So if you knew that Miss Howard was stressed, and I believe her when she said that she told you, please leave. We're not happy. We're not doing well together. We're not getting along together. I want you to leave. Why didn't you go?
She wasn't really clear about that.
She was very clear. I believe every word that she says.
Okay, but...
She said she was stressed, that you were not physically abusive to her, but she felt as if you were mentally abusive to her. She wanted you to leave. Why didn't you leave?
because I wanted to protect her from her boss, okay? And the thing is, she'll tell you that the reason that she wanted me to leave is more or less because that was the only thing that would save her job. She thinks it's the only job in the world and the only place to live in the world.
So you stayed on despite the fact that she asked you to leave in order to protect her. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Let's get to your counterclaim.
My counterclaim is the damage he did to my property, the terrorism he has caused me, the harassment, the extortion, the letters. This is all the evidence to extort. This is the pictures of the swastikas that were. This is where he broke in.
He acknowledges that he broke into your property. Do you have any witnesses to these other acts of vandalism?
Janelle and Gary.
You mean this Mr. Gladstone?
Yeah.
I'm not hearing him again. He doesn't know how to behave in court. Janelle, step up. Did you ever witness Mr. Thomas vandalizing Miss Stein's property?
No, didn't witness, no.
Did Mr. Thomas ever tell you that he vandalized
Yes.
Miss Stein's property?
Yes.
When did he tell you he vandalized Miss Stein's property?
After he saw his stuff outside, he got upset and put his hand through the window.
He acknowledges that. Any other acts of vandalism that he told you about?
He changed the locks because he couldn't get in, so he put his own on.
That's not vandalism. Anything else?
No.
Were there any other acts of vandalism, Mr. Thomas, that have your name on it?
No, but I see she has pictures that were from her other tenant, which was Janelle's cousin. That was the swastikas were from
Who
them.
you're friends with and you live with.
I don't
Stein,
live with.
Are you telling me that those were not pictures that you are attributing to Mr. Thomas?
No,
but to
I'm
somebody
showing
else?
these are the friends that he lives with, and that he was the one that coerced the other tenants to stay, so I had to evict them.
Anything else?
No.
The law is very clear. We have certain systems set up in this country and in every jurisdiction for landlords to, if they wish, to evict tenants. You chose not to avail yourself of that, and you chose to resort to self-help. You cannot do it. Now, I am sympathetic with only one person here, and I'm sympathetic with Janelle because Janelle asked Mr. Thomas to leave, and I have a sense just from hearing her that she is conflicted, that she's troubled, and that if she asked you to leave because things were not going well, if you truly cared for her, you would have gone. That does not give Ms. Stein license to do what she did. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $25,000.